Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's edition of NASCAR 07 as we are Busch Series racing on our custom schedule season, driving as Jimmie Johnson, Cup Series champion, 7-time Cup Series champion, trying to get him his first career Busch Series title on this 2006 season, the same season in which he won his first career Cup title. We have two races for you guys today. Both are 100% races. First one will take place at the Lowe's Motor Speedway at Charlotte. Hence the thumbnail, can the Lowe's car win at the Lowe's Motor Speedway? And then after that, we'll have the second race at the Lady in Black Darlington Raceway for race 2. That will be the shorter of the two races. That one's only 200 miles, this one 300. So we have 500 miles of action for you guys tonight across two races for races 2 and 3 out of 30 on the Busch Series season. Be sure to like and subscribe for more daily NASCAR content, realistic commentary on the video game side during the week, and the real races for NASCAR in the Truck, Xfinity, and Cup Series on the race weekend. This coming weekend, the NASCAR Cup Series will be headed to Richmond, and as they go to Richmond, the Xfinity Series will be racing on Saturday. The Truck Series will actually be at Texas on Saturday afternoon as well, so doubleheader with the Xfinity and Trucks this weekend. Can't wait to bring you guys the action as always. But about to get into business here. Tony Stewart on the pole for race 1. Jimmie Johnson will be starting 7th. We're going to get into this quickly now. Not a great start to the season for Jimmie Johnson at Daytona. Finished well outside the top 30 in that race, and ended up not even finishing on the lead lap by the end of it. His teammate, though, Kyle Busch, was able to get the win. Green flag, though, is in the air as we get race 2 of the season underway. Pretty good launch off the start for Dale Jr., as well as Jimmie Johnson, pretty equal. Johnson got underneath him until he got into second gear, and then he holds on to 7th place down into 3 and 4. I believe that's Matt Kenseth who will take the lead off the exit of turn 4 from Tony Stewart. And so Kenseth will lead lap 1 despite Stewart qualifying on the pole. First mile and a half with the D-shaped oval on this game, and are played through in any series, so we'll see how this is going to go. A couple intermediate tracks. I liked the car after practice and qualifying. I didn't see where I ranked after practice as far as speed, but I know it's a fast race car. Brian Vickers going to take the race lead away, it looks like, on lap 2. He'll get himself 5 bonus points, assuming he'll lead this lap at the start-finish line, and he does. 7 cars under a blanket here off the start. One car up towards the outside, that's Martin Truex Jr. And the number 8 losing a lot of track position. Jimmie Johnson looking to pass him, following the other 8 car in the field, Dale Jr. Yes, there are 2 8 cars, 2 39 cars, and I think 2 33 cars. Just how this game works. It's funny. Gets more Cup regulars in it, I guess. Tony Stewart going to lead his first lap of the race. 3 different leaders in the first 3 laps. Johnson overdrives the corner. Maybe made a slight bit of contact with his teammate, Brian Vickers. Drove it in very deep into the corner. Somehow got it to stick. Luckily, both cars are able to keep at least a decent amount of control. Dale Jr. moving forward from that 5th place starting spot. Johnson right in front of him. Jimmie looking low off turn 4. He's underneath the 8, trying to get 2nd place. Big clearance on Earnhardt there. Big moment. And Dale's going to maybe try to cross Johnson back over. Can't quite get back to the inside. So risky block by Johnson on the front stretch, but he will get to 2nd place behind Stewart in a hurry. And this is where he's just going to be patient. Kind of like we were at Bristol in the first half of that truck race. We were still able to lead the most laps with Todd Bodine last night. Not off to a good start to the season in the Truck Series through 2 races until we got that win in the second race of our doubleheader. We're going to try to get the win in the first race of the doubleheader today, though. I'll find a lot better than what I did in the Truck Series at Milwaukee, I'll tell you that much. Sorry, 7th versus 28th. I qualified 7th at Bristol, too. Derek Booth, Billy Kramer, Wade Solinsky, and others, welcome into the stream. Suarez fined $50,000. I didn't see that. I kind of figured he would get a fine of some sort after the incident what happened post-race at Coda. Driving into people on pit road. Not smart. even if your anger's justified. Not a good way of going about it. Definitely a dangerous way. I did see right before I went live also that Hendrick Motorsports, all their penalties for all 4 teams were basically all the fines and the I should say, I don't know about the fines part of it, but I do know that the points were rescinded. I don't know about the crew chief situation. I don't know if the crew chiefs are still suspended or not, but I do know they have gotten their points back, and so Alex Bowman is now the points leader after 6 races into the season. Got a 15-point lead. Byron's back up to 3rd. I know Larson's back in the top 16 as well. And they get their playoff points back, too. That's huge for William Byron. Having 10 already would have had him taken away. Really, for all of them, getting those playoff points back. Corey Freed, thanks for tuning in also. Yeah, Derek, I saw you asking a question about, like, how do you get max points? I mean, pretty much, you would just need your starting 5 in your fantasy roster to finish 1 through 5, and then they would have to also be the 5 drivers who had the most stage points. Like, that's the only way to get max points, so it's pretty much, I'm not going to say it's impossible, it's not impossible. And then you also have to get all 40 bonus points, though, technically, too. So yeah, not impossible, but very difficult. Johnson able to save a little bit of fuel here, just staying in line behind Tony Stewart. He knows how his car handles in clean air, or at least in dirty air. In clean air to a certain extent based off of practice. I did not touch the setup. Honestly, what I unrolled with wasn't the default setup. I felt like I threw enough downforce into it. If I needed to throw more into it, I could have. I dropped the air pressure down quite a bit too. The car feels stable. It feels fast. You know, we qualified well for a reason. I felt we were going to be fast in the race, and this is definitely the case in the early going. We just got to make sure that we take care of the tires on the long run, and I think Jimmy Johnson's going to be a force to be reckoned with. This is a relatively fresh racetrack when it comes to asphalt in 2006 at Charlotte as well, so should be a lot of grip on this racetrack as it is, and I think that's why it's panning out pretty well here for Jimmy. I remember on the PSP version of this game, this was my worst mile and a half. I seemed to struggle at Charlotte, Dover, which I ended up winning the Cup race at Dover. Led the most laps with Mark Martin in that one. Definitely my best of the first 3 races of the season. So maybe we can win this race here with Jimmy Johnson. I found it weird, though, how I struggled at Milwaukee in the Truck Series, though, at the same time. A lot of that could have been qualified deep in the field. I just was not able to, I couldn't even get inside the top 20. Look at how far away Tony Stewart and Jimmy Johnson have pulled from everybody else after just 14 completed laps. You look at the track map on the upper right-hand corner of the screen, and it is a 2-car breakaway. Johnson swung out pretty wide off the exit of turn 4 there. I was trying to pass Kevin Harvick in practice, which, oddly enough, Tony Stewart's a Kevin Harvick Incorporated driver in this game for the Busch Series. And he was crowding me a lot in practice. I thought I was going to wreck going into turn 3. I got underneath him, had a run. He kind of threw a half block, got underneath him still. Midway down the backstretch, he's like hugging me right on the bottom going into the corner. I didn't think I was going to stick it. Somehow I did without making contact. If I would have, we would have went straight to the wall. I guarantee you. With how flat I entered that corner, thankfully I cleared him. And I was curious to know if we were going to see that a lot in today's race. With just drivers crowding other drivers. And Johnson was able to get from 7th to 2nd pretty quickly. He is definitely going to be patient here with Tony Stewart in the early going, as mentioned. Saw 5 cautions in the season opener at Daytona. 120 laps, 300 miles as well was the distance in that race. Same distance here, just more laps obviously with it being a mile shorter of a racetrack. And who knows, maybe this could turn into a fuel strategy race. We don't know exactly how far we could go in fuel here. It's our first race at Charlotte on this scheme and with the Busch Series specifically. So maybe it's going to be anywhere between a 2 to a 3 stop race, at least 2 stops, and probably 3 at the most. It doesn't sound like we're getting a new NASCAR game this year. I think they pushed it back to 2024 from what I heard. I don't know if it's just reports that are saying that or if it was actually, you know, announced by Motorsport Games if that was the case. I don't know the full details on that, but it sounds like 2024, unfortunately, which sucks because there wasn't even a new game last year, the whole calendar year, and it doesn't sound like there's going to be one this year. I do know that they planned on doing an expansion again, just like they did with NASCAR 21 Ignition. They just made a 2022 DLC. They'll probably do the same thing with 2023, so I'll do a season or 2 when that happens. No idea of exactly when that will happen, but that sounds like the plan. Mark DeMars, welcome in. Yeah, I'm not a big motorsport, like, or not motorsport games necessarily specifically, but just like a gaming, you know, info guy. Like, I don't know a lot. I don't really look into it enough. Like how it says I'm bump drafting him, even though I'm not bump drafting him. Straightaways, there's definitely some separation. I can't even get to his bumper, really, even if I wanted to. Johnson kind of stalled out right behind him. 30.682 that last lap. Fastest of the race for Jimmy Johnson. Stewart hasn't let him off for the pole. First 2 laps were led by other drivers. Brian Vickers led lap 2, and the opening lap of the race was led by Matt Kenseth. But it is really outstanding how quickly the 33 and the 48 have pulled away from the rest of the field. And because it's a 1.5 mile racetrack, we still have a long ways until lap traffic becomes any sort of a factor here. And with it being the early going of the race, Johnson just trying to keep his car clean. Billy Kramer also welcome into the stream. Hope the new update will be glitch-free. I doubt it. It's probably going to be the same exact game, just like it was before. The thing is, though, even though it was the same exact game from 21 to 22, it somehow still got a little bit worse. I don't know how, but it did. The driving of the race cars was better, but the AI themselves got worse. Not a game developer. I know nothing of the realms of what it would be like to be one, so I couldn't tell you why it was the case, but I can tell you for playing it as much as I have that it's definitely the case. Again, Jimmy Johnson just kind of staying behind Tony Stewart here in the early going. He's definitely backed it up quite a ways when we talk about fuel conservation, in the sense that he isn't pushing 100%, because if he was, he'd be trying to pass Tony Stewart right now. There's no stage racing here, so it's not like we have to you know, shoot for lap 45, trying to get around him. We're literally just trying to stay as close to as we can to Tony Stewart, keep the pressure on him. If he makes a mistake, then Johnson will be right there for the taking, but definitely a better situation for Johnson, I'd say, than Stewart, just from a drivability standpoint. Having somebody breathing down your neck this close, but not actually making the pass on you. But I will say, the good thing for Tony Stewart is he's logging in a lot of laps led. Again, he's led all but the first 2 laps. Let's get a share draft now. Tony Stewart kind of moving up to that middle to upper groove right now. It's amazing Johnson's car isn't getting too tight when he stays in line behind him in the center of the corner, even that wide as well. Just goes to show, again, the handling this 48 car has. One car blowing up down on the inside of the racetrack, trying to make their way to pit road. Looked like it may have been Ryan Newman in the 39. If I remember correctly, I think he blew an engine in the season opener at Daytona in the Busch Series as well. So tough break for Ryan Newman here in the early going of the season. Johnson did overdrive the entry to the corner a little bit on that outside lane that time. Nice to get the extra reps, though, in practice and just running different lines, too. Just in case we have to later in the race. We've been pretty much glued to the bottom. We haven't had to worry, obviously, with this. There's another car in front of us, but, or underneath us, specifically. Johnson just keeping that car clean. I agree with you, Mark. I'm pretty sure every NASCAR fan out there is tired of waiting for a new game. That's why there's always this stuff to fall back on at the very least. Thankfully, these were created already. Just spoil ourselves with the old stuff, which is better anyway. Johnson was kind of fishtailing quite a bit there on the front stretch that time. I wonder if his tires are starting to fade just a little bit. So, Z, thanks for tuning in. We start moving down to the bottom. As does Jimmy Johnson. Well, halfway out of gas right now. If these guys can make it close to 70 laps at a full run, it could be a 2-stop race. Jimmy Johnson backing up quite a bit of fuel during this run. Just ran his fastest lap as well, 30.643, so he's still running some quick lap times even behind Stewart. Tells you how quick this 33 car's been also. Just goes to show it's a good reason why Jimmy Johnson is doing what he's doing right now, just being patient. Knowing he's saving quite a bit of fuel doing this. Trying to make it on 2 stops. We don't know what everybody else is looking like. Tony Stewart can't be saving as much as Jimmy Johnson in this situation, you'd have to imagine. We'll take our first field pass of the day today. We'll go back to Kyle Busch in the 5 car, who was the Daytona winner. And he is in 7th place, but he is over 11 seconds off the race lead, also in the Lowe's colors here today, as he will be all season for the Busch Series. PNW _made _206. Thanks for tuning in. I've heard great things about the World of Outlaws game. Busch closing on Matt Kenseth. Brian Vickers looking to make a pass on, I believe that's Jeremy Mayfield in the number 9. She got a little tight in line behind the 17 of Kenseth that time. Looking low, overdrove the corner, slipped up the track a little bit. You saw him clip the apron. Holds onto it to a certain extent. And now will drive is Brian Vickers in the 57. He was just a couple spots in front of him in 4th, also about 11 seconds off the lead. Busch finally gets to the inside of Kenseth going into turns 1 and 2 for position. Looks as if Tony Stewart may be pulling away from Jimmy Johnson just a little bit. Johnson's lap time's backing off even more. You can tell that the 57 and the 5 just aren't handling quite as well as Jimmy Johnson. Johnson has already fallen about 1.8 seconds off the lead. It's crazy. Want to talk about dropping your pace off a little bit. There it is. .9 seconds. Jimmy Johnson trying to make it on 2 stops today. Pretty equal with Tony Stewart that last lap. Now that he's not close to him, it's going to be tough for Jimmy to get back to that 33, I think. Stewart's pretty close to lap traffic, though, too. Jeremy Mayfield, hey, that's up to you guys, the fans. I think he made it into the final vote for the Busch Series. I think it was him, Johnson, Vickers, and Stewart, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was the final 4, so if you guys vote for me to race as him, there's a chance. Yeah, we still have a long season, obviously, to go yet. It's probably not going to be until, if I had to guess, about the beginning of summer before that ends up happening. When we get to that next season, when we do the actual 2006 schedule. Johnson a little bit quicker that last lap than Tony Stewart. Stewart's still not quite the dirty air. And she hasn't really dealt with much today outside of those first couple laps. Track feels a lot wider in this game than what it did in NASCAR 06. I feel like that's part of the reason why maybe I'm driving it a little bit better. I mean, the car is handling really well, which obviously helps. And that track had a lot less grip than this one did. So that probably has a lot to do with it also. Johnson did lead 2 laps in the season opener at Daytona, but it was based off pit strategy. He didn't lead any green flag laps. We saw in the Truck Series it took 3 races for Todd Bodine to lead a single lap all season, so who knows, maybe it takes that long for Jimmy Johnson to get any green flag laps in. I know he is up towards the front, though. And if Tony Stewart pits before him, he's definitely going to get some bonus points today. So what could be a potential fuel mileage race, though, here tonight could be interesting in this first race. Could be a 2-stopper. It's obviously going to really be interesting if a caution came out. And we don't know exactly where everybody else is looking fuel-wise outside of Johnson. You know, are they looking to make it on 2 stops also, or are they looking more towards 3? Yeah, I definitely need to play that game. I know I said I was going to during the offseason, or at least I had plans of doing it. I just never got around to it. I mean, the good news is with no new NASCAR game coming out, it gives me a lot more time to get to it. Ryan Biffle having a pretty bad performance here in the early going of this race. My goodness, he's one of the first cars to go a lap down. He is blocking Jimmy Johnson on the back straightaway right now. This is what I was afraid of, because Kevin Harvick raced me really hard in practice. Johnson to the inside of Biffle on the front stretch. Look at Biffle trying to squeeze the 48. It's going to cost Biffle quite a bit of time as they get down into turn 1. Barely cleared him getting into the corner. Johnson looking extremely low. A lot of contact there. The lap car. Johnson hangs on to it. Yeah, Johnson got a little sideways on the front stretch when that contact was made. Yeah, it'll probably just be like the Milwaukee race when it came to fuel mileage last night, where some were able to make it on 1 stop and some on 2. We had to go 2 unintentionally. We didn't really get ourselves a chance to go on 1, but there were still some drivers that tried to push it to the end. Even with the late cautions, they had a chance to pit and didn't want to lose track position in case they could make it. They couldn't make it. It is taking Johnson quite a bit to try to run Tony Stewart back down again. Kind of goes to show how equal the 33 and the 48 really are. And I know Johnson was sitting close behind him at the start of the race, but if Tony didn't lose the lead off the initial start, maybe he actually could have pulled away from Johnson before Jimmy got to second, but he kind of followed Tony Stewart up there after Stewart got hung out off the start. Tony making his way through a couple more lap cars, and he's definitely getting through the lap traffic a lot easier than what Jimmy Johnson got through those first 2 lap cars. Lap 55. This 174 car's an ally, so hopefully he gives Jimmy Johnson a little bit of extra room. One could hope. Into turns 1 and 2. Well, a little bit of extra room. It definitely was easier to pass him than what it was those first 2 lap cars. Todd Kluver's coming up, so that's 2 Roush cars running towards the back half of the field right now. Greg Biffle, Todd Kluver. Never mind, it's not Kluver. Thought it was. Johnson going to get by that car pretty easily, though, after they were side by side right in front of him, and he is about 0.4 of a second off the race leader, Tony Stewart, right now, going down towards turn 1. But there is a lot more lap cars coming up. Would like to get to Stewart before Tony gets into him. Johnson going low. Wants a little bit of extra room here. Going to side draft the lap car in the back straightaway. Give himself a wider entry, and he's clear. It's taking about 20 laps trying to run Tony Stewart back down. And 1.9 seconds off the lead. Barely quicker than him, really. About a 10th quicker lap on average. If that. Even when Johnson does try to make a pass on Stewart later in this race, it's going to be tough. Definitely going to be critical of these pit stops to be very, very good for Jimmie Johnson. You got to go as far as you can to try to make it on 2 stops, but I mean, obviously if Stewart's short pits, and chances of him making it on 1 last stop not going to be as likely. We do have some cars pitting right now, lap 59. Drivers towards the middle of the pack are on pit road. And Tony Stewart got a pit from the lead at lap 59. So Jimmie Johnson out in front for the first time today. 5 bonus points for the 48 car. And he could go quite a bit further yet on gas. Both of Johnson's teammates are in, Brian Vickers and Kyle Busch as well. So we have to go, if I do my math here, if we go 67 laps. 67, 67, and 66. We'll be able to make it on just 2 stops. That right rear tire, by the way, wearing out of the 48. It's in the yellow on the tire wear indicator. Pretty easy getting by Reed Sorensen that time, who pitted in front of him. Todd Kluver up on the outside all the way through turns 3 and 4. A lot of other cars in front of the 06 and the 48 going to come to pit road. Johnson trying to get underneath the 06. Respectful of Kluver, giving him a lot of room here. Now the right front's starting to go away a little bit on the 48. Yeah, so we're just going to try to go to lap 67. We're going to go to lap 67 this time. I mean, I might go a little bit beyond that, because we were pacing, even before the pace dropped off a little bit in the run, we were looking to go 70 laps, so maybe I go 68 just to make sure. So that way I just go 66, 66 to the end. I think that's what we'll end up doing. I definitely feel comfortable that we can make this race on 2 stops. If I just don't push as hard like I was doing at the start of the race, I think we could definitely make this thing in 2 stops. It's going to be interesting to see, though, if anybody else is also going to be able to do the same thing. We know Tony Stewart was pushing very hard at the beginning. Sure, he led a lot of laps, but that could cost him in the finishing order. Give Johnson a lot better chance of winning this race. Asking this thing to go caution-free, though, is going to be probably the most difficult part about it. So everybody on the lead lap has just pitted. Johnson's got a 1-lap lead. There might be some lap cars that haven't pit yet. We're on lap 65, so Johnson really the only one of the lead lap cars that is actually pacing to make this race on 2 stops right now, with how much he backed it up in that first run, just letting Tony Stewart kind of pull away. He was leading a bunch of laps. Couldn't really get back to him. Once he did kind of get within about 4 to 5 tenths of a second behind Stewart, Stewart pitted. Johnson getting his first laps led in of the day. Second most, obviously, only to Stewart. So there will be no adjustments when Johnson hits pit road. It'll be a 4-tire stop. Made a pit stop at practice. Crew did a really good, clean job. Just got to hope for the same thing here. It was a pretty smooth pit road entry, really. Johnson will stay out one more lap. He'll pit at lap 68. So then he'll only have to go 66 to the end twice. Getting an extra lap let in there. And the left rear starting to go away as well. But Johnson's made it the whole run, though. Got to give him credit for it. He'll be making his way to pit road this time off of turn 4. After a 68-lap run to start. What a perfect pit road entry by Jimmie Johnson. That's why he's a future 7-time champ. 4 tires of fuel, no adjustments for the 48. First stop of the race. I didn't realize the game was only $10 now. Wow, that's sounds like a great deal considering how good the game is. I didn't realize this paint scheme was kind of diamond plated. That's pretty cool. Kind of similar to the Kyle Busch 2008 M&M scheme. It was diamond plated. Yeah, I'm staying down on the apron. Tony Stewart easily wins the race out of the pits. That's no surprise considering he pitted about 10 laps before Jimmie Johnson. Look at what 10 laps did. Look at all the lap cars getting by Johnson. They were so far ahead, a third though, that Johnson's still going to remain in the second place position, but he is quite a ways off the lead. There's a lot of lap cars between himself and Tony Stewart right now. But again, Johnson not too worried about it. Paul Menard got a little loose off turn 4 right in front of him. About a 3.9 second difference between Stewart and Johnson as of right now. Long race still to go. And we know that Tony Stewart's not going to make it on one more stop. Jimmie Johnson is. Johnson's just got to hope it stays green the final 130 laps. And this race is going to be his to lose. Praying everybody runs clean to the end of this race. He's also hoping these lap cars don't cause him too much stress as well, which is probably actually going to be the biggest determining factor of whether Johnson can hold on to win this thing. It's going to be that lap traffic, just based off of what it was like in practice and what it's kind of been like in the early going of this race today, too. Good run, middle of the corner. Getting by the 10 of John Andretti, Clint Boyer, Reed Sorensen towards the back of the field right now. Border set in the 9. I forgot there's 2 9 cars also. Good thing is we went an extra lap that first run too. See, I tried to do that in Milwaukee and that bit me in the rear end. That was not the ultimate cause of why I finished as bad as I did, though. I still could have finished on the lead lap if I just wouldn't have made the mistake by not getting the car full of fuel, which was my fault for not really paying attention, I guess. feel that race at Darlington a little bit later is going to be a lot more technical, though, than this race. Fastest lap by Johnson that last time, 30.624. Pretty good one. Has a run. It's probably another lapper getting into turns 3 and 4. Really rules the entrance to the corner a lot better than these lap cars where he's beating him. It's under the 06 Clover. Danny O'Quinn Jr. lap down too. I think there's 5 Roush cars, if I remember correctly, in the Busch series. For some reason, Carl Edwards isn't in this game, so there's only 4 of them for the Cup side. I want to say 3 for the trucks. Eric Darnell, David Reagan, and whoever's in the 50. Actually, I don't even think the 50 truck is in this game. I think it's just 2 trucks then. Honestly, can't remember. I don't think I've seen the 50 truck at all in the first 3 truck races. Because Danny O'Quinn Jr. would have been in the 50 before. A little contact there with Danny. Risque getting into turn 3 that time. So that's the big thing right now with Jimmy Johnson. Can't be the one to cause any sort of a caution. Kurt Busch a lap down. Really like that Penske car, those colors. I remember when Hornish ran that similar paint scheme when he was full-time in the Busch Series in the number 12 for Penske. Kind of basic, but I really like it. Denny Hamlin blocking Jimmy Johnson going into turn 1. I wonder if it's possible Tony Stewart's dropping his pace and maybe try to save a little bit more. And actually, we have problems right now. Brian Vickers blew an engine. I don't know if this happened recently or what the case is. I just realized it, but Brian Vickers has just blown a motor. That is a tough break for that 57 team. Now we have to watch the rest of these Hendrick guys just to make sure Johnson and Kyle Busch are going to be all right to the end. Vickers was in the top 10. Johnson squeezed quite a bit going into turn 1, hangs on to it, makes the pass. Dale Campbell, thanks for tuning in. National holiday for baseball. There you go. Baseball and St. Louis. Every other city out there. I guess, you know, with St. Louis not having a football team anymore, with the Rams moving to L.A. a handful of years ago, I guess that does make the Cardinals the biggest team in the city. Was it like that before, though? Curious, because they were having a lot more success at the time of St. Louis departing anyway. But St. Louis, I mean, they had some good teams. Greatest show on turf back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Eric Dickerson played there for a long time. Well, actually, I think they were LA at the time, too. Dickerson played there. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. .2-second lead for Stewart over Johnson. Johnson was about 3.8 seconds off the lead when he first came off of pit road. That was only about 15 laps ago, so he has really ran Stewart down. Looking a lot better this run. I wonder if Tony's just not getting through the lap traffic as well as he did before. And it does seem like Jimmie Johnson's been getting through the lap traffic even better than he did earlier in the race. Oh, and he got squeezed big time going into turn 1. He had a lot of momentum going into the corner right behind that lap car, and that lap car pulled down right on top of him, making contact with Johnson. Johnson slid going into the first turn, hangs on to the race car. Looking back at Old Spice Speedway race, a NASCAR 06 Classic in the final 25 laps. Which series specifically? Kind of curious as to which race you were talking about. Is it the Cup Series with me just setting like fastest lap time after over 300 laps? Is it that one? I mean, that race we were way ahead. It wasn't really a battle for the win. Unless you're talking about another race. I really can't remember what went on in the other ones. Elliott Sadler's the first car 1 lap down right now in the number 90. He ended up with a top 3 finish at Daytona. Actually led the most laps in that race. Kyle Busch was able to pass him in the final few laps to get that win. So Hendrick Motorsports trying to start 2 for 2 in the Busch Series, but one of their drivers already out, and that would be Brian Vickers, but their most competitive driver today, Jimmie Johnson, still up in the running. He's been second for most of the day. He has led laps during green flag pit stops. Led about 10 or 11 laps before Tony Stewart hit pit road, or I should say after Stewart hit pit road, and then Johnson obviously gave the lead right back up. That is not Elliott Sadler. It's actually the 101. I think he is already 1 lap down, so he is the first driver to go 2 down, if I'm not mistaken. Johnson clears him. No more lap traffic between the top 2. Still a 1-second lead for Stewart over Johnson. Lap 89 out of 200 in this race. I mean, I will say that made things interesting, at least at the end of the race. More watchable than what I would have thought a 333-lap road course race could have been. That was a long day. Caution is out. Wow, that changes everything. Our first yellow of the race. And we have trouble. Wow. Huge wreck off turn 4. Single car, 1 up on its side. One of the fantasy drivers. Is it the 163 again? That was the same thing that happened at Bristol with the 163 yesterday in the truck race. That was not the 163. I think it was the 139. Caution flag is out. Waiting to see. Yeah, they do pit. I tried to pit. I was waiting to see if anybody else was going to hit pit road. I saw Stewart pulling it, so I tried to hit X, and it didn't register in time. Well, that stinks. Green flag back in the air. Johnson back in the lead, but he is going to be on old tires. He can still make this race on 1 more stop. Oh! Big block going into the first turn, and now he just turned himself off of Tony Stewart. That was a terrible restart for Jimmie Johnson. That was all on his own. That was all his own doing there. Didn't help he was on older tires trying to save the car after the contact. Stewart back to the lead pretty quickly. Matt Kenseth, newcomer, in second. And Jimmie Johnson on about 20 lap older tires right now. I did try to pit. I mean, the good news is we're going to make it a 1 more stop. We're going to have to pit way before everybody else, though. Just got to hope we don't get another caution. We're committed to staying out now. Just ran our fastest lap, 30.592. Lap car in the number 119 in the way of Johnson. He's not budging. Kenseth maybe going for the lead on Stewart. that is the saving grace that the field needed, was a caution. Because Johnson was the only driver looking like he was going to make it on 2 stops. Yellow right before the halfway mark changes things up a little bit. Johnson battles his way past the 119. Kenseth went wide in turns 1 and 2 as well, and Jimmie Johnson now going to move himself up to second off the exit of turn 2. He's right there behind Tony Stewart. He did close him back to the 33 car a little more, but this isn't the way he wanted it to happen. Because now he's going to have to race him straight up. He's going to be on fresher tires after a little bit later in this race. Johnson's just going to stay close behind Stewart. Definitely going to make it even easier than what it already was looking to be for Johnson to try to make this race in just 2 stops total, which would be 1 more stop to the end. So everybody will have to pit 1 more time, but Johnson again will have to be the first onto pit road. Limited time to decide. Yeah, I saw him turning and I tried to click it and it just... It was a smart move to wait for him. There's just such a little time. I didn't want it to be as much of a guessing game. I really didn't want to give track position up by pitting. And this car still seems fast, even on old tires. 20 laps isn't a lot at Charlotte in 2006 because it was a freshly paved track. So this might be one of the few tracks where we can actually luck out in the situation we're in. Still have decent speed. We'll be officially halfway this time by. Halfway. 100 down, 100 to go. In race 1 of our doubleheader tonight. Race 2 at Darlington. That will be a 200-mile, 147-lap race. Darlington always putting on some instant classics with the Xfinity series, so we'll see if we can put on another instant classic here today. But got to get through this first race, and this has definitely made things interesting after that crash off turn 4. The first yellow of the race, just shy of the halfway mark. Got to the restart. Now everybody's in a one-stop situation to the end. Man, Jimmie Johnson's putting together some great laps. Still like that it says I'm bunk drafting him when I'm not. Just find that funny. Well, Tony Stewart back into clean air. Right where we were for about the first 30 to 40 laps of the race. It's a little bit different pit strategy from what we had before. Everybody's pretty much even to the end now. Earliest we saw drivers pitting was about lap 58, 59. So even those drivers, if that's all the further they can make it, they'll definitely still make it on 1 more stop because we went green at lap, what, 93, I think, on the restart. So plenty of time. And even when the caution came out, lap 89. Yeah, like I said, it's going to make things interesting. Not a walk in the park for Jimmie Johnson anymore. Try to get this win at Lowe's Motor Speedway tonight. Santiago Kid, thanks for tuning in. Johnson just hit halfway on fuel too, so he definitely has a while he can go before having to pit. alternate through the different camera angles for the first time in our first race, excuse me, of our doubleheader today. Jimmy Johnson continues to just ride in line behind Tony Stewart. Was there a points penalty that came with the Daniel Suarez situation? I know he had a fine. I didn't know if there was a points penalty with that also. Because I remember the Ty Gibbs situation, he had a points penalty for owner points. He wasn't in the Cup Series at the time. But I do know that was also a repeat offense with Gibbs also. So that had a lot to do with the points part of the penalty. Yeah, I saw the fine was 50 grand. It's crazy, like, we talk about that being like a slap on the wrist for these guys. Like, that's about what I make in a year. I mean, like, it's just like, oh yeah, all that work you did for the last year. Yeah, well, good luck. I'm just gonna take that away from you right now. Granted, it'd be, you know, consequences of my own actions, but it's kind of nuts to think about. I'm trying to think, like, percentage-wise what that would be, like, for me to have to pay, like, a random fine like that if I was at, like, a local go-kart track that had an action like that and I had to pay, like, that percentage, like, what the percentage is of, like, how much money he has versus, like, how much money I have or that I earn on an annual basis. Would that be like me paying like a couple $100, like for like a ticket or something like that? Like, sounder look pretty good to pay that much. Yeah, oh, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely a lot of money, like, even to them. Like, it would suck if I had to pay a couple $100 for, like, you know, like a parking ticket or something, you know, outrageous like that, but be like, oh man, well that sucks. It's gonna hurt for the week. Like, I would imagine that's probably the same for Daniel Suarez and his family. I don't think he has any kids. Maybe it makes it a little easier. I mean, I don't have any kids either. It would still suck. It could be. I don't pay any attention to the MLS, so I couldn't tell you. We're going to transfer back as Kyle Busch here. Oh my gosh, Jimmy Johnson got sideways. Think he's okay, I hope. Did he just blow a motor right after we switched? Johnson is very, very slow on the bottom of the racetrack. I think he is okay. Lost a lot of ground there. I thought he blew an engine for a second. Luckily, he did not. We know Brian Vickers blew an engine earlier in the race, so that's why I was wondering. Kyle Busch remains in it. Lost a lot of time. He's battling for second right now with Matt Kenseth in the 17. Tony Stewart has pulled way ahead now. Run some extra laps with Busch, knowing Vickers is out of the race. And now Kenseth looking underneath the 48. We're just going to act as if he had like a bunch of debris on his grill he had to get off, so he had to let Kenseth get in front of him to get it off. So he lost a lot of ground. I mean, he is about 5-6 seconds off the lead now. We'll swap back to Jimmy Johnson when we get back to the start-finish line this time. Bye. Patrick Chadley, thanks for tuning in. Busch in 5th. So actually Johnson's dropped back to 4th place. Not 2nd. And we'll drive as Jimmy the rest of the way. 5.5 seconds off the lead. 4th place for Johnson. This is as far back in the running order he has been since the start when he qualified 7th. He's had a great car. He's been top 5 all day. Everybody has to pit one more time in this race. We know Johnson is going to have to be the first to pit road. He stayed out, keep track position. Kind of unintentionally stayed out. Wanted to pit with the rest of the field, but still lost a lot of ground, obviously, to Tony Stewart. Johnson to the inside of Kenseth down into turn 1, going for 3rd. And even on older tires right now by about 20 laps, Jimmy Johnson still proving he's got a strong race car as he gets by Kenseth for 3rd. He's going to have to take advantage, though, when he has fresher tires, when he has to be the first car to pit road. And we also have to hope it stays green. That's the sketchy thing here. Kind of put in a box. Unfortunate circumstances to when that first caution came out. Should still get a good finish, though. As long as... I mean, there's quite a few cars a lap down, though, too. How fast Tony Stewart and Jimmy Johnson were at the start of the race, especially Stewart. He lapped a lot of cars the first half of this race. But I still wouldn't want to even try to come from a lap down to win. There's no chance you're going to do it with 80 laps to go. Not sure who's in 2nd then with Kenseth in 3rd. Because Kenseth initially got to 2nd on the restart. So it's going to be a 4-tire stop. No adjustments for Jimmy Johnson. And he is... Oh, and sounds like Matt Kenseth just pitted. I wonder if he blew an engine off turn 4. I don't know if that's a scheduled stop or not. Not going to be able to make it on fuel all the way. And maybe there is a possibility to not everybody hit pit road. But I don't see anybody else pitting. That looks like an unscheduled stop for Kenseth, who was in 4th. He might have blown an engine. Be the 2nd driver to be running in the top 10 to blow an engine. We saw Brian Vickers do that in the first half of the race. Ryan Newman blew an engine earlier. I'm not sure where he's running, but obviously a bigger name in the Busch series. You'd imagine he was having a pretty good start to the day. Although Kurt Busch was kind of mid-pack, so I don't know if that's the case for sure. Really wondering who the 2nd place car is. $75 to go at the line. Still 4.6 seconds off the lead. Johnson's picker are going to have to definitely be more on it than what they may have originally had to be with the second and final stop of the day. Now knowing still 2 stops versus 3, but that caution really bailed everybody out. It's looking like Johnson was really going to pull away with this thing. Fastest lap that last time, 30.516, I believe was the lap time. Would be 5.36. It's a lower 35 though, that's for certain. Great lap. It's 48 crew. I think Mark Martin. Oh, Kenseth, my bad. What? Did we not just pass Matt Kenseth? By the way, 30.486 that last lap for Jimmy Johnson. He is really digging right now. He knows he's got to make this ground up. But even on older tires, he's running his fastest laps of the day. Which is insane. Drove in really deep into 3-4. He is pushing. The end of this tire stint. 30.369. He's gotten a 10th quicker these last few laps specifically as he's ran down Kenseth. That must have been Mark Martin we passed then. I think they have similar paint schemes in this the Busch series in this game. So I'm going to guess that Mark Martin was in 3rd. We passed him and then he blew an engine. Kenseth obviously in the race still. I was a little confused at who was in 2nd because we did have Kenseth further back. Oh my goodness. Tried to intimidate him and ran into the back of him. That didn't work out for Jimmy Johnson. Can't get him loose enough. Catching a little bit faster of a car, though. This is definitely hurting Johnson's chances. There, now he got Kenseth up out of the groove. This is the opportunity Jimmy needed to make the pass on the 17. Side by side, lap times have definitely fallen down quite a bit these last 3 laps, trying to get by the 17 car, and he will for 2nd. So Jimmy Johnson back into P2. Can he run down Tony Stewart in the final 70 laps of this race with a pit stop in the mix yet? I think the big question is, I think we'll get to Tony Stewart. We may even cycle to the lead, pitting, if I had to guess, about 20 laps before him. 15 to 20 laps before him. We'll have fresher tires. But when we're back on older tires again, knowing how fast Stewart is compared to the rest of the field, again, he's 4 seconds ahead of even Kenseth. We caught Kenseth on the old tires. Stewart's going to be a different question, though. So if we can't close that gap during green flag pit stops, if it's a slow stop, that is really going to hurt Johnson's chances of trying to win this race on Stewart. And even if he gets to him, he has not been able to pass him all day. The only time he has led laps is simply by staying out of the pits longer during green flag pit stops and staying out of the pits completely for a restart where Stewart got to the lead initially going into turn 1. So it is not looking good here for Johnson or really anybody to try to win. I think the best thing that can happen is we get a caution now before pit stops. Otherwise, we're going to need this to play green. 67 to go at the line. Johnson's within the fuel window to make it to the end. He went 68 laps at the start, so if he wants to pit now, he can. He's going to go a couple more laps, though, just to be safe. We did have a caution during this run as well, so he was able to put back a little bit of extra fuel. Pitted at lap 68 earlier. He's gone 66. This will be the 67th lap. And again, he had a caution. Knowing he can't really save, though, in that final run. That's why he's really wanting to go a little bit further here, just in case he burns more fuel in that final run to the finish. Johnson will stay out this time by. He'll pit at lap 137, so when he comes off of pit road, he's only going to have to go 63 laps on fuel. That will be the plan. To go 63 laps to the end. This run's going to be 69, so 1 lap further than the last run, but with the caution, taking up a few extra caution laps. Feels a little bit more confident. Should easily be able to make it, though, with this one stop. And he'll be pitting this time. 4 tires and fuel for the 48. Oh, coming in hot. Almost came back up in front of Matt Kenseth. That would have been terrible. Not a clean pit road entry, but it was effective nonetheless. Could have been worse. And that is Mark Martin, by the way, on pit road. And there's the hiccup already on the pit stop for Jimmy Johnson. They tried to get the nozzle into the fuel cell, and yeah, that's tough. 16.5 seconds. That was like a second and a half slower than his first stop. Time effective for sure. And try to make that time right back up on these 4 fresh Goodyears. Again, there are a lot of cars lapped down. You look at it right here. Tony Stewart. I don't know if Johnson's the first car lapped down or not, honestly. He could be, he could not be. So just kind of wait and see. If he is the first car lapped down, if we get a caution, he'll get the free pass in 15th, but he'll have to restart the tail end of the longest line, and that still may hurt his chances of winning, knowing how fast Tony Stewart is. So need this to stay green for at least a little while, at the very least. Gotta push and gotta dig to the very end. Trying to make up as much time as he can. Tony Stewart getting into lap traffic. The good thing is here for Jimmy Johnson, when he cycled off of pit road, there's no traffic around him, so he's got a lot of clean air with these fresh tires. Could have came out in traffic, and he might not have been able to make the most out of this situation, but right now he can. $59 laps to go at the line. Kyle Busch looking at back-to-back top 5s though to start the season, as long as he can make it to the finish. Obviously needs to get on and off the pit road pretty well also. Tell you what, though, it's going to be a lot of fun once Tony Stewart pits to see who's going to cycle back to the lead. Well, 3 seconds is a lot of time to make up, but it's doable. Even on a track where the tire advantage maybe doesn't mean quite as much here, which is why Johnson was able to stay in the top 5 the whole time on old tires, but he was not able to get back to the lead on Stewart. As a result, again, was 3 seconds back in second. I think it's pretty clear that Tony Stewart's had the fastest car today, and Jimmy Johnson probably the second fastest, but he's right there with him. Elliott Sadler up ahead. I'm not sure who the next car is. Maybe Aaron Crocker behind him. Don't know if they're on the lead lap or not. That is Crocker, the 98. I didn't realize how many lap cars Tony Stewart's passed this run either. I kind of looked up at the track map. He was just getting into it right when we came out of the pits. He's passed a lot of cars already. Which is going to make it even harder for Johnson to really be in the free pass position at 15th. Not that all those cars are on the lead lap, but some of them could be. And Johnson good on fuel to the end. Everybody else still has to pit. The way the pit strategies were, we knew we were going to have to pit before everybody else. Once we had that first caution back on lap 89. Johnson needs to take advantage of this. Try to get by Crocker and Sadler as quick as possible. In order to go with the run he had going into turn 1, has to stay in line behind Crocker at least another corner. Looks really low off the exit of turn 2. Crocker blocking. And Tony Stewart gonna pit this time. Johnson really wants to get around both Elliott Sadler and Aaron Crocker. They're holding him up a little bit on these fresh tires. One of them going to get to the lead and get some bonus points. I think that's why they're not letting the 48 go, because they are battling for the race lead. I think Stewart led that lap at the line on pit road, so this is a battle for 5 bonus points between these two right now. Johnson to the outside lane. If it wasn't for the fresh tires, he wouldn't have been able to pull that off. He's not clear, though. Crocker's still underneath. Sadler will lead this lap. Johnson clear. So now we know he's in the free pass position with Stewart pitting. Not sure where Tony's at. There's Kyle Busch. Contact getting into the corner there. Johnson desperately trying to get around. Now has to block Crocker again. I think that might be Matt Kenseth in the 17 up ahead. That mistake on pit road by the gas man for Jimmy Johnson and that pit crew definitely cost him a lot of time. And Elliott Sadler's cost him quite a bit of time right now as Johnson's trying to get around him. Down into turn 1, a little contact. And Johnson gets by. Trying to keep the car clean so he'll be at his fastest, but Sadler's holding him up there for a while. Oh, there's lap cars around Kenseth coming out of the pits. Johnson back on the lead lap if we got a caution. Sadler stays out along with Crocker again. We don't know how far ahead Tony Stewart is right now. Sadler may be pitting this time. He was very low on the back straightaway. And he does not pit. Oh, big contact. Jimmy Johnson, the 123 car. So we know the 90 and the 98 have to pit. Oh no, more contact for Johnson with Greg Biffle. Sadler on pit road. Crocker may have pitted with him. Probably the lap before, really, because could have been the driver Jimmy Johnson just passed. Riggs Sorensen coming out of the pits down to the bottom of the racetrack. Nowhere for Johnson to go to the inside. 3 wide. Tight move. Johnson needed to get by. Sorensen was still trying to get up to speed, and that's why that move worked. Jimmy trying to keep himself in this race. A gutsy move down to the bottom of the track. And now trying to get past Matt Kenseth. This is a battle for second on the racetrack. All the lead lap cars have pit. Tony Stewart cycled back to the race lead. Quite a ways out ahead here. .8-second lead. Johnson trying to make quick work of Matt Kenseth. Gets to the inside in the middle of turns 1 and 2. Oh boy. Forcing himself clear off turn 2, up to second. He's got 43 laps at the line to try to run down Tony Stewart. He was about a 10th quicker a lap earlier in the race. That pace going to have to quicken up a little bit if he's going to want to catch him to the very end. Going to have to be at least a couple tenths quicker a lap. And he still hasn't been able to pass him, even if he does catch him before the finish. Lap traffic not doing Jimmy Johnson any favors today. Oh, and he spun nearly off turn 4. He got really loose. Wow, what a save. Down into the grass. I don't think he touched the apron there, but the car broke sideways in the middle of the corner. I hadn't been that loose all day, honestly. It's been very controllable. But not that time. That didn't do Jimmy Johnson any favors. Now he's back to third place again. Desperation block on his teammate Kyle Busch. I was waiting for the caution to come out with how sideways he was, but no yellow. Very fortunate that when I thought I hit the commitment line on pit road, but I guess I didn't. Because if it did, it would have sent me into the pits. It's not a good spot to have that happen. No contact, though, and there's somebody blowing up down on the bottom of the track. Clint Boyer is just blowing an engine. He'll try to get to pit road here. We stay green. Still sitting with that one caution back at lap 89. Johnson's 7.5 seconds now off the lead. Well, I mentioned he was going to have to be a couple tenths quicker a lap to catch Tony Stewart. He's going to have to be even quicker than that now, about 3 to 4 tenths quicker a lap after that mistake. He's going to have to be perfect to the end, and even that might not be enough. Just hoping that these lap cars give him some space. Surprised Johnson's car broke that loose off turn 4, and speaking of getting loose, Sorensen got loose. And then Johnson got sandwiched between Sorensen and the lap car he just passed off turn 4. So things are not going well for Jimmy Johnson at all right now. Gerald Smith, thanks for tuning in. Yeah, pretty much. Should have been yelling, look out. Good thing there's no pit road wall like there is now with the Roval. Because I would have creamed the pit wall. Thank goodness this is old Charlotte. A little quicker than Tony that last lap. Field is pretty spaced out where Johnson's at right now, for the most part. He'll catch cars here and there, but where Tony Stewart's at, he's got a lot in front of him, which could help Johnson, but Tony gets by them, which he's been getting through lap traffic really well for the most part today. I don't know, it's going to be very tough. Jimmy Johnson to win this race. Greg Biffle in the 16, next car in front of him. Maybe trying to block for his teammate Kenseth, who is in second. Johnson just gets to the inside. He is desperately side drafting Greg Biffle, trying to hang on. Get to the inside. I will tell you, I have not pushed this hard all day today. This is probably why I spun out, was just pushing maybe a little too hard. You got to get that fine line. I don't really felt I made an error driving other than the sake of maybe I got back in the gas too quickly. Like full throttle too quickly, and it just got out from underneath me. Right back with the 126. These lap cars crowding Jimmy Johnson. Johnson looking for a little bit more space. It's so tight getting into turn 3 when they crowd you like that. Clean pass, though. Johnson going to need more where that came from. One car is next. If I'm not mistaken, I think Matt Kenseth is the next car up ahead. Not much of a gap there for Jimmy Johnson. Pass made. And there is one more race yet tonight on the channel and on this stream. It will be at Darlington for the St. Busch Series season. 500 miles worth of racing on a Wednesday night here on NASCAR 07 on the channel. Throwback Thursday tomorrow on the channel. We'll watch an old Richmond race. Guys have been able to vote throughout the week for that. So the voting poll will close at the end of the stream and we'll know exactly what race we'll be watching. We do know Johnson can easily get to Matt Kenseth here. We got 31 laps to go at the line this time by, and he's probably only about a half a second behind the 17 car. Stewart's still pulling away, though, from the 17. He's 5.8 seconds ahead of him. Johnson was 7.5 off the lead, though. There's about, what, 43 to go, somewhere around there. Got to get as close to that white line without touching it as possible. That's what caused Johnson into obviously getting really loose and losing a few seconds to Stewart. Losing second place. But Johnson going to have to be perfect to the end. 30 to go. Kenseth getting by the lap car. Oh, and that's Kevin Harvick. Little contact. Tried to close that gap up before Johnson got there. Wasn't in time. Of course, he has teammates. Actually, I think Harvick's at RCR, but of course that's his car leading the race. For Kevin Harvick incorporated. Johnson to the inside of Kenseth for second. Side by side on the front stretch. Jimmy Johnson back to P2. Running out of laps. I don't know if we're going to get there, but we're going to do a pretty good job trying. Ran second for most of the day to Tony Stewart. It's coming down to the finish between the 33 and the 48 once again. Just under 5 seconds off the lead at the line. A lot of lap traffic now in front of Johnson this lap. Clip the grass, trying to get by Danny O'Quinn Jr. into turn 1. Just trying to give himself some more room because these guys haven't given him much. Just gets under Paul Menard. Risky line off the exit of turn 2 to get there. As he passes the number 11. Bernie Lamar in the 174 side by side. Johnson going to have to fall to 174 to get by Lamar up high. Got by him. No, out of bounds. Going for it. I'm not gonna lie, that actually worked. Cleanest way to get around these guys. It felt very unstable going through there. I'm not gonna lie, I got back to the asphalt. The car felt like it was wiggling quite a bit. Might not be the smartest thing to do, but it was effective that time. But maybe not by the lap time's sake, but it was effective. At least to get by the lap cars. I don't know if that's going to work on Tony Stewart. Johnson to the inside of Casey Mears. Back straightaway. Mears giving him a lot of room. Johnson slides into the corner. Flatlined it a little too much. Luckily, he cleared the 42 by the time he went up the track. We're down to 24 laps to go at the Lowe's Motors Speedway. 3.8 seconds off the lead. Is it enough time with 24 to go to catch Tony Stewart? I can imagine Chastain trying to do something like that at Charlotte. Especially the turf, it might actually work out better. Johnson to the inside of Ty Kluver. About a tenth quicker than Stewart that last lap, but a lot of lap traffic still around him. Clears Kluver into turn one. And now more clean air for Johnson to try to use. Can he get to Tony Stewart? I mean, he has closed the gap a lot from what it was. He's going to have to continue to close. He's faster than him when he doesn't catch lap traffic, but you'd have to imagine Stewart is just getting through the lap cars just a little bit quicker than Johnson, or at least at a quick enough pace that Jimmy just can't close the gap faster than what he's doing. May have touched that white line on the bottom of the track again in 1 and 2. Really loose in 3 and 4 that one time he got close to it. I didn't think he touched it. Maybe he did looking back on it. Tough to say for sure. Risky run in that situation though. We know Stewart's passed at least those 5 cars. Looking at the track map at the upper right-hand corner of the screen, Stewart's got a lot of clean air in front of him, so I do think that that is the car out ahead of these other 5 we have to catch. I mean, he could even be even further ahead than that. Though I think that's him. 3.2 off the lead, 20 laps to go. We had to kind of do what Austin Hill was able to do with Chandler Smith. Wasn't he like 3 seconds back with 20 to go in that race? Or I mean, this is almost carbon copy. He caught him coming to the white flag. I don't know if Johnson's going to catch Stewart. Stewart's pace is a lot better than Chandler Smith's was at Vegas a few weeks ago. Closing laps. Stewart has been the dominant car all day. But if he can't hold on with the 7.5 second advantage he had at one point over Johnson during this run, Johnson will have earned this victory, despite not leading a whole lot of laps. He has not passed Tony Stewart, though, at all today. And Stewart hasn't had to pass the 48 either. Pit crew blunder costed Johnson about a 1.5 seconds on pit road as well. He could be a little closer. Car right in front of Johnson got loose off turn 4. Jimmy trying to get to the inside of the 178. He will get there, side by side into turn 1. Tight line, Johnson makes the pass. Johnson a little loose, touched the apron that time, just a hair. Kurt Busch in the 39, next car in front of him. Sort of really pulled away from this pack. He's that lone car all the way out ahead. .4 off the lead. Kurt trying to block. Johnson just gets to the inside of Busch off turn 2. Side by side in front of Johnson, up ahead. Denny Hamlin in the 20, up on the outside. Johnson just got underneath of him. Hamlin got really loose off turn 4. He might have gotten into the wall also. Johnson side drafting, a lot of contact going down into turn 1. That's gotta cost him some time. Barely hanging on to it as he gets by the... Who's that, the 121? Jeff Burton, next car up ahead. What a fight to the finish here for Jimmie Johnson in the closing laps. 15 laps to go this time by. Still 2 more lap cars in front of him. 1.8 seconds off of Tony Stewart. He has closed that gap down a ton right now, but can he catch smoke? To the inside of Burton on the back straightaway. Said, the number 9 car just up ahead as well. Johnson makes the clean pass on Burton. Said got loose off turn 4. Johnson to the inside of the 9. He intimidated him, making the quick pass. Clear. And Burton may be able to pass Said for position as well, as they're the first cars a lap down. Maybe even 2 down, really, at this point. I'm not entirely sure. Longest green flag run of the day so far, as we have gone about 97 laps. That first yellow of the race came back on lap 89. We're down to 13 laps to go. We'll alternate through the different camera angles one final time in today's race. The lead is cut down to 1.4 seconds. No traffic between the top 2. 1 lone car Stewart is looking to catch here before the end, and that'll probably be the last lap car of the day. Jimmie Johnson trying to come from 7.5 seconds off the lead in 3rd place during this green flag run to catch Tony Stewart. Both looking for their first wins of the young season. And fuel shouldn't be an issue for Johnson here in these final 12 laps. Went as far as 69 laps. Granted, there was a caution in there, but went as far as 68 laps at the start of the race on fuel without a yellow in the run. So 63 laps should be no problem. .1 off the lead. He's closed the gap enough if he can just maintain the pace. That's the big thing. Has he taken care of his tires during the run? He's had a couple of scares. And if he gets to Stewart, does he have anything to pass him? Because he has not been able to pass him all day. Ten to go. 1 second off the lead. Johnson maybe a tenth quicker that last lap. Right rear definitely taking a little bit of a beating during the course of this run. Down to 9 laps left. Not quite catching a draft on the back straightaway. Johnson has closed that gap immensely on Tony Stewart. I think he's going to get to him. We still have 8 laps to go at the line. I mean, the big thing now is just hoping it stays green to the finish. You should have the time to get to him. Seven to go. 0.3 of a second off the lead. About 3 to 4 car lengths back into turn 1. Johnson carrying a lot of momentum now on the back straightaway. Stewart going a little bit wide. Getting into turns 3 and 4. Jimmie Johnson is right there. 6 to go. Stewart blocking at the line. Johnson looking for a way around him. Hasn't been able to pass him all day. Stewart definitely not going to make it easy. So he has caught him, and he's got about 5 laps to try to get around him. It's all over Tony Stewart's back bumper right now. Looking low for the lead. Down on the bottom. Contact. Into turn 1. Jimmie Johnson out in front as he finally passes Stewart. He had to rub on him a little bit to finally pass him. But with 5 laps to go, he has caught Tony Stewart. He led laps earlier today. Could Tony Stewart have an answer? I don't know if this car's going to get aero loose. I haven't been in this situation today. Gotta hope it stays on all 4. 4 to go. Tony putting a lot of pressure on Jimmie Johnson. Johnson trying to hold the wheel steady. They may catch this lap car up ahead. They may not. Tough to tell for sure. Stewart lost a little bit of ground through 3 and 4. 3 to go. Fastest lap by Johnson all day today. 30.360 that last lap. On beat down tires after running down Stewart, he just ran his fastest lap. It's going to be tough for Stewart to get there. Johnson can replicate that in these final few laps. Wilson in on that lap car just up ahead. 2 laps to go. Another 30.363, only 0.03 of a second off that last lap, but Tony Stewart's still there, showing how fast both of these cars are. Johnson almost drove it in a little too deep getting into the corner. He's still fine by the exit. Tony Stewart looking low, but he didn't have enough of a run to get underneath Jimmie Johnson that time. But he does close quite a bit getting into turn 3. Trying to take the air off the rear spoiler of Johnson's race car. Johnson did get a little loose that time off turn 4. Hangs on to it though. White flag in the air. 1 lap to go. One more corner. Lap car just in front. Johnson trying to get as much of a draft off of him as he can. He doesn't want Stewart to get underneath the back bumper of his race car. Jimmie Johnson beats Tony Stewart late at Charlotte. Stewart in the wall off turn 4. Lap car actually got a little loose as well. Johnson ran into him. And it looks like Jimmie Johnson is going to win at the Lowe's Motor Speedway. Tony Stewart tried. He was pushing hard. He got the wall off of turn 4. Coming to the checkered flag, trying to get to Johnson. He ends up second. 0.6 of a second margin to victory. And Johnson goes to victory lane for the first time this season. That was a pretty good race number 1 here today. Let's go. Take a look at the finishing results to race 1. Just 17 laps led for Johnson today. Tony Stewart led 175 laps. He dominated the race, but just couldn't hold on late. Johnson found something. I don't know how I was running my fastest laps of the day at the very end like that, but I was. We were absolutely hauling the mail trying to catch him, and we just got to him in time with a few laps to spare, which helped because it did take me a couple laps to get around him once I got to him. But passed him with about 4 to go, and ended up holding on those final 4 laps to win. Tony Stewart finishes in second after starting on the pole, again leading 175 laps. Johnson started 7th, led 17. Kenseth led 2 today, finishes 3rd. I think it was probably during green flag stops if I had to imagine. Well, no, he led the first lap of the race, so he probably led another lap during green flag stops as well. Kurt Busch ends up finishing in 4th place. Kyle Busch finishes in 4th place today. Aaron Crocker 5th. Good run for her. Elliott Sadler 6th. Kenny Wallace 7th. Martin Truex Jr. 8th. Irvin 9th. And Ryan Newman rounded out the top 10. So I guess Newman didn't blow an engine. It was another purple-black car, I guess, that blew motor earlier. We only had 14 drivers finish on the lead lap. And just a few DNFs. Schultz, we saw Brian Vickers blow an engine. He led one of the first laps of the day as well. Mark Martin blew an engine, which we saw he was in 3rd at the time, or 4th at the time. Clint Boyer blew an engine, and that was it. So 4 drivers DNF total in this race. 1 hour, 49 minutes total time on this one. Pretty quick with just the 1 caution, 12 lead changes. 165.11 miles per hour was the average race speed. All right. Well, time for race 2. We'll check out the point standings real quick before that gets started. DHP 200 at Darlington will be race number 3. And I'll update the points at the top of the screen as well here before we get this next race underway. I'll practice a little bit before that Darlington race also. Kyle Busch leads the early season standings after 2 races. 2 top 5s for him. A win himself in the first race at Daytona. Finishes 4th in race 2. And our first race of the doubleheader, of course. Jimmy Johnson up to 11th in points. I didn't show the point standings after the truck race, the second race yesterday. Tom O'Dine's up to 9th in points, by the way. 175 out of 1st. With 17 races to go. But Jimmy Johnson, here's still plenty of races left in the Busch Series. We have 30 races versus 20 in the trucks, so looking pretty good for ourselves right now with 28 races left and going into the second race. Good bounce back after that rough finish at Daytona. I think Talladega is race number 4, though, so I'm definitely going to want to try to put a good run together here at Darlington once again. Try to close back in even more on the point standings and the early going into the season. But yeah, I'll update the points real quick, and then we'll get this second race of the night underway. And that will take place at Darlington. Sure to like and subscribe for more daily NASCAR content if you haven't already also. Spelled Yealy's wrong. You know it's bad when you spell 5-letter last name wrong. Not the greatest typer. I sound like a boomer saying that, but it is true. Alrighty. So this will be a little bit shorter of a race. Yep, MLB regular season starts tomorrow. Good luck with your daughter also with the chemo, Derek. Coca-Cola 300. I mean, it definitely felt like a little bit of an endurance race, just trying to catch him from far behind there at the end. Running out of laps quick. Alright, I don't even know what to do here. I'm just going to try to, like I said, I'm going to run a little bit of practice here for the start of this race. I just want to make sure that the car is going to be handling cooperatively off the start. That's first and foremost for me personally. And then I'll go from there. I don't care. I'm adding a lot of downforce. Might be too much. We'll see. Almost ran into that car coming out of the pits. Don't know how many laps I'm going to run here, but let's try to get a feel for this track. First time, of course, racing in NASCAR 07 since my youth. On the PSP, too. Again, I have not played this game on the console. Or at least on PS2. I think somebody I knew had it for Xbox. I might have played it on an Xbox before, but primarily it was PSP. Already had a little bit of a wall scrape there. This thing still feels loose. Put a little more wedge into it, probably. Yeah, this could be treacherous trying to make a pass. Not gonna lie. Ah! It wiggles a lot in 1 and 2. Oh, kiss. Slap the right rear fender into the wall that time. Ouch. There we go. Why is it so loose in 1 and 2? It's weird that 3 and 4 it handles pretty good, but 1 and 2 it is way too loose. It's not perfect at 3 and 4, but it's better. Probably run this setup for qualifying, honestly. Maybe. So I'll see how quick it is first. Don't ask me why I went down that way to pass Stewart. It worked. Coming out of the pits. Racing each other for the win in Charlotte. Racing each other in practice, Darlington. I'm going to need to tighten this up. I'm going to pit this time. Tough pit road to get onto. Alright, good pit road entry. Let's put one more round of wedge into it. Just kind of go from there. Might add a little bit more downforce when the session's over as well. Guy should get around me getting up to speed here. Get to feel what it's like to pass a car then with how tight it is. Well, never mind. You know, I was kind of thinking in the back of my head, I'm like, watch him pit after he gets in front of me. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Alright, turns 1 and 2 is where it was loose last time, so we'll see what it feels like now. Just hoping it's a little better. think a lot of it, though, is me just trying to get used to driving the track in this game, too. It's already a difficult racetrack as it is. You go to a new game. It's kind of hard to transfer it over. This is an older surface at Darlington, kind of similar to what it is now at this time in NASCAR, too. I think it was repaved in 2007. Either 07 or 08. So in 2006, it was very old. Which is probably causing the car to get as loose as it is. It's like how Charlotte, I was fine in practice, never made an adjustment change once I just put something random in it for practice. Then to the race, and here we are in this situation. Oh, yeah. It's hard to catch it. It's very easy to overcorrect. I thought I was going to hit the wall a lot harder. Info putting a lot of pressure on me right now, though. Oh, jeez. Might be too tight. I don't know. It feels a lot tighter at 3 and 4. Like 3 and 4, it almost kind of felt perfect before, but 1 and 2, I struggled with how loose it was. Definitely hard trying to get away from Greg Liff. Well, I mean, that lap was better when I kept it off the wall than any lap I ran earlier, so it looks to be a little bit quicker. That's one thing back when I was racing when I was younger, too. I felt like I was... Granted, I don't think like a video game with an analog stick and a controller does much, but I was always better at driving a tighter car than a loose car. And I always grew up racing on dirt, and I felt like that should be the opposite. Like, you should be better at driving a loose car, you would think. I could drive a loose car because of having the dirt racing background, but I just felt like the car handled better when it was tighter for me, personally, like the drive. Like, I could drive it faster than I could a loose car. So I always wanted to try asphalt racing growing up and stuff, but never got a chance to. I always wondered what that would have looked like. When I first started driving, it was like road course. Like asphalt, and I tested on like a road course a couple times. Kind of makeshift, but it was. I mean, there's some right-hand turns in there. Alrighty. Well, I'm going to keep that setup in it. I would have liked the looser setup for qualifying, but we actually ran faster on one lap. I don't think that's a huge sample size, but we'll see what qualifying will bring. Try to get the first pole of the season for Jimmy Johnson in this Busch Series. Didn't qualify at Daytona and qualified 7th in the second race that you saw earlier in the stream at Charlotte. 2 laps to try to set the quick time. The tracker on the bottom of the screen. Pretty good through 1 and 2. Still a little loose down there, but it's not as bad as it was. Pretty solid through 3 and 4. This could be the first pole of the season for Jimmie Johnson. On lap 1, he's got... No, not quite. I thought I had it. Second. At 28.385. That was close. That was about what I ran in practice. Almost identical. I don't know if I can get much more out of it, but we'll see. Man, I really thought I had that. Gonna have to be really good 3 and 4. Digging for it on the bottom. Just don't get tight. Don't get tight. Oh, okay. It wasn't too bad. Oh, man, we were even quicker and still didn't get it. Wow, we actually picked up and still didn't get the pole. Second, both laps. Ryan Newman, of course, the Rocket Man, gets the pole. It is 2006 still. He's with Penske. Penske, Ryan Newman, you can pretty much guarantee he's going to be on the pole 9 times out of 10. Especially on the intermediates. But, yeah, Ryan Newman on the pole here. What do you run? 28.310. Wow, Kyle Busch starting deep. He qualified 34th. I didn't see where Vickers qualified. Yeah, so he beat us by about 53 hundredths of a second. That's crazy because I picked up like 200ths, 22 hundredths from lap 1 to lap 2, and he still beat us. So he's pretty far ahead of third. Yeah, well, we'll see how Ryan Newman is. Tony Stewart was the guy to beat in the last race. He dominated, led all but 25 laps, didn't win, even though he qualified on the pole. So Newman's probably going to be really quick here in race 2. I'm going to take a quick bathroom break and then refill my water for race 2, and then we'll get that race underway. Alrighty. I'm back. I should have put it in the chat for anybody new coming. It's probably like, what the heck, where'd he go? I'm back. Had to release my inner demons. Yeah. Alright, here we go. So, again, Ryan Newman on the pole. Jimmie Johnson starting second. Race 2, best starting spot of the young season for JJ. And see if we can sweep the doubleheader tonight. Led just 17 laps in the first race. Race 2, we'll see what Johnson can do. Green flag in the air, and we're racing at Darlington. Johnson off the start, trying to get to the lead on the outside. So close, but Ryan Newman is going to get the pedal to the metal down in the middle of turns 1 and 2. He'll accelerate side by side, 2x2s, the rest of the field off of turn 3. And knowing how treacherous it was to pass, honestly, in practice, we're just going to take it easy here behind Newman, just like we did with Stewart at the beginning. It paid off. I mean, it was kind of lost him during green flag pit stops, so hopefully we can keep touch with Ryan Newman and we'll go from there. A lot of racing, obviously, here today. Oh, boy. Big moment there for Johnson. Big moment. A little tight off turn 2. Had to lift quite a bit there to keep it off the wall. I think it got back in the gas a little too soon. I felt the car going up the track. Usually I don't catch it in those situations. I bounce off the wall. Luckily, I kept it off the wall. I'd like to go all 200 miles without a Darlington stripe. I don't know if that's possible, honestly, but we'll see. Michael Turner, thanks for tuning in. Newman almost got into the wall off the exit of turn 2 there. Definitely tighter in 3 and 4, but it's really tight in traffic behind the 39. Elliott Sadler kind of holding in there. This was one of his better tracks back when he was in his Wood Brother racing days. Don't really remember how exactly he fared running here. Robert Yates Racing. Qualified well, third, runs there, 6 laps into this one. I would imagine this is going to be a 2-stop race. Pretty straightforward 2-stopper. Fast lap for Johnson in the early going that last lap. About half a tenth or so off of where he was in qualifying. Same goes for Newman. Newman maybe a little bit quicker here than Johnson, but not by much. Johnson can't really find a good way to get around him. Newman hitting his marks. He's swinging out a lot wider than Johnson is, but he's definitely beating Jimmy in the first half of the corner. And I think the reason why Johnson's able to get a much better exit is because he's backing up the entry, which will help him save his tires a little bit. Maybe he can pounce on Newman later in the run, but for right now, obviously, pretty patient start. Johnson trying to go back-to-back in the early going of the season. Hendrick Motorsports winning the first 2 races, with Kyle Busch winning at Daytona and Jimmie Johnson, of course, winning at the Lowe's Motor Speedway. The Lowe's car was able to win at Lowe's Motor Speedway today, and the other Lowe's car finished 4th. Solid run for our title sponsor, Concord, North Carolina. Sadler was hanging in there for a handful of laps there at the start. Now Ryan Newman and Jimmy Johnson really starting to pull away from the rest of the field. Almost a carbon copy of what it was between Tony Stewart and Jimmy Johnson at the beginning of the Charlotte race. And then kind of the same way a little bit in the middle of the race. Stewart kind of pulled away in that third quarter portion of the day, but Johnson ran him back down in the fourth quarter and caught past him with about 4 to go. This one a shorter race though, so can't afford to fall behind like we did. That last lap he ran was his quickest in the first 12 that they have put down. A little bit quicker than that first lap he had in qualifying, but not as quick as the second lap. There's a big gap, by the way, on the racetrack of where a lot of the drivers are in the field. Kind of interesting. A little bit loose that time in the first half of the corner. And we don't know what these tires are going to feel like towards the end of the run. It's another reason why Johnson's kind of holding up a little bit. We just don't know what it's going to be like on this game yet. I feel like the tire fall off is a little bit greater in NASCAR 7 than what it was in NASCAR 6 in the first few tracks we went to, even Charlotte. It's not unbearable though. And it's weird though because at the start of the race on NASCAR 06, it felt like the car was more unstable than what it is in NASCAR 7, but over the course of the run, I feel like there's more fall off in 07 than what there is in 06. It's like if I start loose, it just gets even worse. But in this, it kind of starts off okay if I have the right setup, and then it gets worse. Obviously, you saw it. Milwaukee, I was like way too tight. And, well, you didn't see the... I say Kentucky, I meant Milwaukee. Sorry if I said Kentucky, that's not even in this game. But, Milwaukee in the truck race last night was way too tight in practice. You didn't see that. Still tight qualifying. Kind of swung for the fences setup-wise going into the race, trying to loosen it up a ton. It was too loose at the start of the race, and then I couldn't drive it most of the race. Tightened it up middle of the race, and it still was kind of loose. Could never really make that back up. So that last lap Johnson ran was quicker than his qualifying lap, but again, still about 4 hundredths off of where Ryan Newman was on his pole lap. Johnson doing a great job running their own respective lines. It's the 2002 rookies in the Cup Series. Down here in this Busch race, having a good start. Newman ended up 10th in that first race at the Lowe's Motor Speedway. So he's trying to get back-to-back top 10s. Obviously trying to get that first win of the season. Oof. A little too low. Got to the apron that time and kind of pulled me down to the left. Even more. Managed to gas enough, though. It didn't really have a major moment there at all. Didn't feel like the tires were sliding out any extra. It definitely pulled the car initially. If we were to somehow make this race on one stop today for fuel, we would have to go about 74 laps. That's almost got that first Darlington stripe. I hit the wall like 3 times in practice. Ran like 14 laps, but we are a lot smoother here in this race so far. Maybe not pushing quite as hard. Obviously, I have a little bit better understanding of the track itself on this game. The more and more laps we get into this, taking care of that equipment. Two cars, and then you look on the track map, it looks like about another 2 cars spaced back quite a bit, a big space, and then everybody else. If they don't break apart by the time Newman and Johnson get into lap traffic, that is going to be interesting. It's also going to be interesting because if there's a crash, there's going to be nowhere to go back there. Surprised they're as bunched apart as they, or bunched together as they are this many laps in already. From 5th on back practically. Ethan, thanks for tuning in. Wish Darlington was the finals. That would be a great championship for Darlington. I feel like if they did that, though, they'd have to move the Southern 500 earlier in the year. Which has kind of gotten its original tradition back again for being on Labor Day weekend. But that would be a good finale as far as actual tracks are concerned. Oh, Johnson a little bit deep into the corner. Yep, there he is, into the wall. That's the first Darlington stripe of the race. Tough break there for Johnson. Lost a little bit of ground. Overdrove it that time, couldn't catch it like he did a little earlier. He did that one other time. Yeah, I mean, the problem with making the Southern 500 the finale is that I feel like it kind of takes away from the championship aspect, which NASCAR is kind of going for with the one-race championship format. Can alternate through the different camera angles. The first time in the race today. At the start-finish line, in the second race specifically. Newman's been spotless in this race. Jimmy Johnson got one scrape into the wall a few laps ago, lost a little bit of ground, quickly kind of got that ground back. None of these two have tried to pass anybody yet today, so if we do get a long enough green flag run, we do get the lap traffic in this Busch Series race, it's going to be very interesting to find out what these cars will handle like in traffic. Can't imagine it's going to be very easy on these guys. I mean, Martinsville's only one race away. That would definitely make a lot of logical sense. I'm down for Bristol being it too, but the time of the year might be a little cooler. That's the only problem there. I mean, the thing is, though, it's really cool at Martinsville most of the time, too. I was kind of lucky when I went there in 2021 for the penultimate race of the season that day it was like 65, 66 degrees. Usually it's not like that. Will I go to Martinsville this year? I'm hoping, but I'm not going to guarantee it. So hit about halfway on fuel at lap 35. That's going to be very tough for Jimmy Johnson to make this a one-stop, so it's probably looking like a two-stop race. And the idea right now is just kind of staying behind Ryan Newman. Not really looking to battle the 39 in the early going. Right front wearing out already, kind of midway through the run. One or two stops, probably looking at two. I was expecting that coming into the day. We'd be about 7 laps short, about 3.5 laps short per run to be able to make it a one stop, and I'm already kind of not pushing very hard for the most part. I mean, we're pushing a little bit to stay with Newman, but if I was pushing really hard, I'd be trying to pass him every single lap, so kind of patiently riding in line behind him. King Jeff, thanks for tuning in. Lap 40 right now. Oh boy. Broke loose off turn 2 that time. We'll take our first field pass of the race here. And we will drive Kyle Busch in the 5 first. And he is right in the eye of the storm. 18th. Actually, considering he qualified 34th. Being in 18th place after 41 laps. Pretty impressive. Mostly single file in front of him. But on a track that is this difficult to pass, we will see. Kyle Busch could keep up. Try not to make a mistake. Looking to pass the 29 of Kevin Harvick. Jeff Burton, Harvick's teammate, right in front of him. Busch going to make the pass. Dale Jr. in the Oreo number 8 car right there as well. Burton 3 wide in the middle. Busch down on the bottom. Side drafts Burton. Maybe a little contact with the 21, and that allowed Jr. to clear the 21 and the 5 going into turn 1. How about Kyle Busch right there? Moving himself into the top 15. Loose getting into turn 3. Busch's car is a lot more on the edge, it feels, than Johnson's. Gets underneath Ron Hornaday, and we will drive as the 57 of Brian Vickers now, who is in 10th place as he's chattered the front tires getting into turn 1. Too hard on the brakes, maybe. Still beat Kenseth to the inside by the exit of turn 2. Wiggle. I mean, we're making passes with the other Hendrick cars. Vickers to 7th. To the inside of Tony Stewart. Or, Greg Biffle for 6th. Got him. Not sure where Vickers started. I do remember Busch, though, qualifying 34th. Obviously, Johnson started 2nd. Vickers could have been starting in top 10. Could have started back where Busch was, in the middle somewhere. I really don't know. We'll go back to the 48 car for right now as he remains behind Ryan Newman. We are getting close. Johnson a little less than a second off the lead from Newman. Lost a little bit of ground those last few laps. $100 to go at the line that last time by. 48 laps. Or lap 48 is what we are currently on. Johnson kind of tagged the wall a little bit off of turn 2 there. Slight grace, that's going to be turn to stripe number 2, and now he's had one in each corner so far through 49 laps. Lap 50 right now, and we'll alternate through the different camera angles once again. Let's get it out of the way here on this second and final time of the early going to the race. They're spaced apart a little bit at the very tail end of the field, but still relatively close. As Ryan Newman and Jimmy Johnson have not been more than a second apart from one another, but Ryan Newman has now clinched the first 50 laps led in this race. He's getting very close to clinching the most laps led already, considering he has led every lap. Because the halfway mark would be right at lap 74, 24 laps away from him. Right side tires down the yellow on that tire wear indicator. Newman going to try to make a pass on his first lap car down into turn 1. Johnson just going to try to follow him down on the bottom. Johnson barely clear there. Hoping when we get through green flag pit stops, the field will space apart a lot more. We're getting pretty close to that first stop of the day, all things considered. As Ryan Newman and Jimmy Johnson continue to stay nose to tail for the lead through the first couple lap cars of the event. Really see the bumps moving this 48 car around a ton in 1 and 2, especially from this camera angle. Loose off turn 4 there also. Just kept it off the car to his outside. Still not comfortable trying to pass cars, honestly. Have to do it, though, trying to keep up with Ryan Newman. This is what it is, really. Hope nothing bad happens up ahead here. One car blowing up down on the inside of the racetrack, trying to make their way to pit road. A little bit of smoke pouring out of the back of that car. One of the fantasy drivers are there. 4 tires in the yellow now, and the tire wear indicator for Jimmy Johnson. This point in the run, 90 laps to go at Darlington. Nobody has made a stop yet, but everybody likely gonna have to pit twice. Really trying to run this first run out as far as they can. Maybe there's a chance they can see some drivers making on one stop. I don't think that's going to be possible. You know, Johnson's looking like it's definitely a 2-stop race for him. Stick with the far chase cam now for the rest of the race. Ryan Newman going to pit from the lead, so Johnson will lead his first lap officially at the start-finish line this time by. And that will be 5 bonus points for JJ. So Newman, literally the first car to make a green flag pit stop during the run. Jimmy Johnson going to go a little bit further before he hits pit road. Definitely going to have to watch for cars in front of him pitting. And we got a whole line of them coming in. Pretty well organized up for the most part. It's interesting when Newman gets fresh tires back on that racetrack, though. Is he going to be in traffic or is he going to be in clean air? If he's in clean air, he's definitely going to cycle ahead of Johnson. Looks like we've got some cars coming into the pits in front of Jimmy this time, so this will be a little easier for Johnson now as he doesn't have cars directly in front of him anymore. So the plan here for Johnson, we're going to pit with 80 laps to go. Should be lap 68. So lap 68 is when we'll have Jimmy Johnson hit the pits. just as far as we went on fuel at Charlotte. Track a little bit smaller in length. Tires are definitely wearing out, though. A lot quicker than what they were at Charlotte. And even Charlotte, it's a bit of tire wear, at least, throughout the course of the run, surprisingly. Given the track age compared to Darlington. A lot lower downforce on these Gen 4 cars probably has a lot to do with it. More horsepower. Johnson not the last car to lead lap to pit. There is a lot of cars coming in though right now. One of the field is currently on pit road or is just making their way there. So only Ryan Newman and Jimmy Johnson have led today, but Johnson didn't lead until the middle of green flag stops. He is the last car in the lead lap as we run. Skirted the tires a little bit getting into turn 1 that time. He will not be pitting this time by either. So Johnson will stay out one more lap and he'll pit at lap 68. Great job managing fuel. Charlotte doing the same thing here at Darlington. But he can split it to the end 40 and 40 if he wants. Now he won't have to go 68 laps anymore on these tires, so that'll help the handling a bit. It'll be 4 tires and fuel for Johnson. No adjustments when he makes his way to pit road. A pretty clean pit road entry. No, never mind. Into the wall. I thought I had it, and I didn't. Oh my gosh. Yep, yellow flag is out here. That's going to trap a lot of cars a lap down. I can't believe I did that. I thought it was a clean pit road entry, and then it really narrowed up. That was embarrassing, I'm not going to lie. Oh my goodness. Well, so much for having track position, let me tell you. I mean, when you were in great position between it being one-on-one versus yourself and Ryan Newman. Oh, man. That's quite a bit of damage on the car, too. I didn't hit it going ridiculously fast. I was going like 60 miles an hour, but that hurts. That hurts the psyche a little bit. Gonna try to pretend like that didn't happen. Well, at least the crew can take as long as they want on pit road right now. As I say that, it looked like there was a little bit of a mistake by that tire changer. Alright, well, let's see. Still in the lead lap. Bad news is, wow, we trapped a lot of cars a lap down with that. Green flag back in the air, but we definitely trapped a lot of cars a lap down. Elliott Sadler is now the leader. Busch, because of causing the accident and pitting there, tail end of the field, but is in 5th. Three wide already. Risky move by Johnson, but he's trying to get through the traffic as quickly as he can. Well, he's got the grip in the tires, might as well. Elliott Sadler, though, out in front, which is very interesting. How he got to the lead over Ryan Newman. But he did get there. We'll be halfway home this time by at the start-finish line. Sadler was in the top 3 the whole time, though. This is definitely giving him new life. There we go. Smokey in the pot, thanks for tuning in. Whoa, boy. Slipped out from under me there. A train of cars on the top getting by Johnson. They're running a lot wider line in traffic, which Johnson, when he's able to keep his car pinned to the bottom, he's definitely making some passes. I feel bad that I trapped as many cars a lap down, though, as I did. Stinks to have that as the first seal. I mean, the good news is for me, at least speed-wise, I was in the top 2 anyway, so it wasn't like I was at the back and we trapped everybody a lap down like that. But only 5 cars on the lead lap with that caution coming out as Busch was trying to get to pit road. No clue where our teammates are at right now, whether they're on the lead lap or not. All the cars Busch has passed on the restart have all been a lap down. Wonder if there's a potential for anybody to be 2 down. I don't think there is, but I guess we don't know for sure. Side by side with Reed Sorensen, only 1.8 seconds off the lead again. Johnson got to get by Jeremy Mayfield in the number 9. Now side by side with Kyle Busch, who is a lap down. That's unfortunate that one of our teammates is a lap down, but that is the case. I'll tell you what, Jimmy Johnson passed a lot of these cars a lot quicker than what I would have thought he was going to. I guess he slightly has fresher tires. Probably even out pretty soon, considering he's using them up quite a bit, trying to get through everybody as quick as possible. He's doing a great job. He's passed everybody cleanly that he has passed. Still nobody, though, for the lead lap. Imagine Ryan Newman's got to be up there battling, knowing how fast he has of a race car. Kenseth's a lap down. Paul Menard just up ahead. Johnson's trying to get underneath the 11. Menard down into turn 3. Menard a lap down. Ryan Vickers is up here. Maybe Vickers is on the lead lap. One second off the lead at the line. Sadler is the lead car in this pack. Side by side between Mark Martin and Aaron Crocker off turn 4. Johnson to the inside of Hamlin. Hamlin a lap down. Martin got really loose. Off the exit of turn 2. Johnson lifted. Hamlin back to his outside. So Aaron Crocker was for position. Mark Martin was not. 3 cars in front of Johnson, so everybody else will be on the lead lap. So Crocker in 5th is the last car in the lead lap now. Vickers falls back to 4th. Johnson gets by for 3rd. I think that's Tony Stewart in 2nd, who finished 2nd at Charlotte. So Ryan Newman isn't even on the lead lap. I didn't even see him getting through the pack either. I think something happened to Newman. He was the first to pit road. I wonder if he blew an engine coming into the pits. Maybe pitted a little too early because he had an engine failure. I'm curious to know what happened to him. So I did not see him getting through the field there. Fastest lap of the day for Johnson that last time. Faster than Newman's pole lap. About 9/100ths of a second. 28.218 that last lap. Will Stewart get underneath of Sadler? Not quite. Johnson will get to the inside of Tony Stewart, though. Side by side for second. Sadler's that clean air advantage, though. Nobody's been able to pass him since the restart. Johnson back into P2. Still long race yet to go. He's willing to kind of just sit really behind Sadler if he so chooses. We'll take our final field pass of the race today. We'll go back to Kyle Busch. So we mentioned he's a lap down. He is currently in 12th. Pass for position. No, Paul Menard is lap down yet. So this will be for 10th. Oh, Menard up into the wall as he got loose. Oh, when Busch got into him, there's contact. He couldn't clear him off the exit of the corner. Off of turn 4. Busch thought he had enough to get around him, and he didn't quite have it. Even with Menard getting into the wall, both cars ended up in the wall instead. No caution, though. We stay green. And now to Brian Vickers we go. So he hangs on for 4th. Stewart's stuck behind Johnson yet. Johnson losing the number 90 a little bit. Still a good chance Ryan Newman's going to lead the most laps today. How many he led at the beginning. Well, Sadler can lead quite a bit all the way to the end now. Vickers closing in on Stewart and Johnson. We'll just ride with Jimmy the rest of the way. Tony Stewart to the inside, a lot of contact. Johnson crowded the 33 quite a bit there. That'll drop Johnson back to 4th. That was on me. He was there, and I tried to hold the outside, ended up crowding him a little bit too much. Johnson sliding back now to P4. And interval time off the race leaders, he is about a 1.4 second difference behind Elliott Sadler. So Johnson just trying to regroup here. Just gotta hope he hasn't really burnt the tires off the car too much this point in the run. Everybody still has to pit one more time before the end of the race. There's only 5 cars on the lead lap with when that first yellow came out the car of, I believe that's Matt Kenseth. It's either Kenseth or Martin. Actually, I think it's Mark Martin behind Johnson right now. We know he's a lap down. Both he and Kenseth would be a lap down anyway. Next driver for position on the lead lap behind Johnson would be Aaron Crocker in the 98. Stewart is railing in the 90. I think Tony's got a really good car again. Just hasn't been able to lead yet, almost 100 laps in. Only 3 drivers to lead, Johnson, Sadler, and Newman. Brian Vickers right there. He might get underneath Tony Stewart for second, and he does. Side by side off the exit of turn 2. They almost touch. And Brian Vickers is clear up to second. Johnson's caught up. He'll get to the inside of Tony Stewart into turn one for third, and he does get underneath Vickers as well for second, trying to get them both. And he does. What a move by Jimmy Johnson. To second in one corner for fourth. Stewart almost into the back of the 57 there. So maybe going to be a little bit patient here with Elliott Sadler again. Everybody going to have to pit one more time yet in today's race. Johnson doesn't want to be the last car to pit road again, though, because he cycled quite a ways. Well, we won't know exactly how far Johnson would have fallen off, but I'd imagine we probably would have ended up falling right in line. Well, it's tough to say, though, too, because if Newman DNF'd and blew an engine, we probably would have had the lead by a pretty wide margin over Sadler, but instead, Sadler's now the leader with Newman dropping out and Johnson causing the accident. And that's why he leads right now. .48 laps to go at Darlington. Lap 100 out of 147 currently. And now Sadler and Johnson pulling away from the field. Really, the only two cars that were in contention there for a little bit were Tony Stewart and Brian Vickers. They started to battle back and forth for third, and they started losing the two that have kind of stayed single file for a little bit now. Johnson not really looking to pull out, maybe make a pass here on Sadler. He's just kind of holding himself in line for right now. Vicker had a hiccup during that last green flag stop in the Charlotte race, and Johnson almost didn't catch up to Stewart there by the end. There's a little contact between Johnson and Sadler off the exit of turn 4. Johnson got into the left rear, probably got the worst of it as far as losing the time on Sadler. Jimmy could have split this 40 and 40 to the end as well, so we're getting pretty close to that 40 lap stint already on these tires. Doesn't feel like that caution was that long ago, but it really was that long ago. We only had one caution in the first race. Darlington stripe off of turn 4 that time for Johnson. Sadler about a car length and a half lead, roughly, getting into turn 3 this time. Halfway through the fuel run. Definitely know nobody else hit pit road during that caution. Still likely outside the window to make it to the end as well, so that's probably why. Definitely within the window now, though, if we caught a yellow. Johnson got a nice run off turn 4 that time on Sadler. Didn't quite get to the inside of him, though. A wall tap. Middle of 1 and 2. Definitely catch lap traffic one more time here before the end of this race if we don't get a yellow. And again, we'll have to see how things space apart after green flag pit stops also. Another scrape off the wall off turn 4. Time he hits the walls, probably knocking a little bit out of the handle into the car, you'd have to imagine, too. 38 laps remain. The Darlington Raceway. Jimmy Johnson trying to get a run in the center of the corner, and he just cannot get underneath of Elliott Sadler. Probably not going to help either. Johnson dives it. Can he stick the corner on the bottom as low as he's running? Door to door. Not clear yet off turn 2, side by side. Got close. Battles again, though, into 3 and 4 on the bottom. Gonna slide wide, and Johnson is clear as he finally passes Sadler for the lead off of turn 4. 36 to go. And it's the 48 car out in front. Now he has that clean air advantage. I think the smartest thing to do here is going to be to stay out just in case we get a caution. I really don't want to pit. As soon as Sadler pits, we're going to pit that next lap. They have pulled away from everybody else. So if it stays green to the end, it's likely just a 2-car race. Johnson going to have a better job, obviously, entering pit road. That's going to be on him. He made that mistake earlier. It was so clean in practice, and then we tried it for the first time in the race. I made the mistake. Although Sadler's there, he hasn't really put a lot of pressure on Jimmy Johnson. Kind of the same way Johnson wasn't putting a whole lot of pressure on Sadler until those last few laps before he did pass him. Took a couple laps to complete the pass, or a couple corners to complete the pass when he got underneath him initially, too. Just couldn't get the drive off down on the bottom, and Sadler's doing a great job holding him tightly down on the inside, trying to keep Jimmy from getting back into the gas as soon as he would have wanted to. This race is more than likely going to be won and lost on pit road, knowing that the second stop is coming this late in the race. You can pit now and we'll cycle well ahead of him if we cycle, but if we get another caution, get trapped a lap down, chances of winning are out the window, and chances of even finishing second out the window. At least you know it's going to be a first or second place finish in this situation. Nobody else is going to catch these two under green. Not unless something catastrophic happens where they get into one another a couple times and end up losing a lot of ground. Jimmie Johnson trying to sweep the doubleheader in this Busch Series today. Led just 17 laps in that first race at Charlotte en route to winning. Has probably led about that many already at Darlington in a race that has about 53 less laps and still 30 to go this time by. He is slightly gapped Elliott Sadler. He's a few car lengths ahead of him now. You can tell Johnson just a little bit quicker. Ryan Newman was the class of the field until he blew an engine, where it looked as if he was probably going to easily cycle back to the lead through green flag pit stops once they cycled through. Caution came out in the middle, and it sounds like he ended up potentially DNFing anyway. There's no way he would have been a lap down unless he had like a speeding penalty or something. It'd be the only way I could think of that he would have been a lap down, and the other cars that are on the lead lap, the 5 of them right now, were there. Could be 6 cars on the lead lap, depending on who got the free pass as well. It definitely wouldn't have been Newman. He should have been the leader. 29 to go. Sadler maybe a little quicker than Johnson the last 2 laps. Remember, Jimmy's pit crew, even in that first stop, kind of made a little bit of a hiccup as well, even though he was the only one on pit road during the caution. There wasn't really any pressure. They could have taken their time, which was fine, but to have back-to-back pit stops between the end of the last race and the start of this race be not very fast. That could be concerning for this 48 team. This could be out of Jimmy's control here to the finish. Although he could have been a lot better position if he had not caused that caution, though, on the back half of that first tire stint. Knowing Newman ended up likely DNFing, he could have been a large ways ahead of Sadler. Instead, had to battle through traffic on the restart. Finally got to the lead a little bit ago, and now it's going to be relying on the pit crew. Johnson was the next best driver to beat today behind Newman. Quarter of a tank of gas left this point in the run. Right rear starting to slip away, as well as that right front already. Getting close to lap traffic. Sounds like we have some drivers hitting pit road this time. Again, Johnson and Sadler are the 2 racing each other. Left front starting to really wear out now too, getting towards the end of this run. We know you don't have to push very far at all on tires the next time these guys hit pit road, so you might as well make that decision accordingly. Sadler stayed out, so Johnson stays out. You know, Johnson will stay out this time by as well. A lot of traffic right in front of the 48. I wonder, and there's Newman, by the way, so he is still in the race. I don't know what happened to him, but Ryan Newman has fallen way off. Johnson getting into the back of that 149 just a little bit. Newman right in front of Sadler. Fastest lap, 28.205 that last time for Johnson. Quickest of the day. Sadler's getting held up behind Ryan Newman, and Johnson's getting away from him. Newman came out of the pits. He was getting up to speed right in front of the 90, and that has helped Johnson pull away a little bit. Sadler stays out of the pits that time. Sadler finally made the pass on Newman, by the way. Low dive off turn 2 by Johnson. Hoping this car above him stays out of the pits, which he should, and he does. Next car up in front is pitting. Sadler staying out again. As long as he stays out, Johnson's going to continue to stay out. Because there are other cars on the lead lap. I mean, they could have all pitted by now. We really don't know, but They're far enough back. These two aren't racing them. They're racing each other. We'll have 21 laps to go this time by. Another car coming out of the pits down on the bottom of the track. Johnson closing in on. That's Crocker. She was one of the lead lap cars. Johnson up on the outside. Got into the wall. Struggled to get off of it. Sadler still on the track, by the way. Earl Arnold Jr. thanks for tuning in. Sadler pitting that time. It would have been too late for Johnson trying to make the dive, considering he kind of missed the pits the first time earlier in the race. 20 laps to go. Just ran his fastest lap on old tires. 28.184 that time. What a lap by Johnson. Finally gets around that lap car. Closes in on Crocker. Just a little bit. Johnson really loose that time. But he's going to make the 4-tire stop. Can't miss the pits this time. Power slide getting into the corner. Trying to catch it. Got to get all the way to the bottom, and he does. Can't speed either, and he did not. 4 tires in fuel. No adjustments. Final stop of the day with 19 laps to go late in this race. And now the hope it's a clean pit stop for his pit crew. Sadler pitted 1 lap before him, but he was about a half a second off the lead. I didn't even think about taking 1 can, honestly. That wouldn't have been a half bad idea. I didn't see that comment till afterwards. Oh no, the Jackman has fallen over. The 3rd consecutive bad stop for Johnson. Had to fix his helmet too. That cost time. 17.5 seconds. That was even a second slower than the Charlotte race. That is unbelievable. There goes Sadler. Johnson's still getting up to speed on the bottom of the racetrack. He's not going to be too far behind him. But he is no longer your race leader. Probably wouldn't have had the lead otherwise, maybe. I mean, that was 2.5 seconds slower of a stop. Johnson was running literally his 2 fastest laps of the race right before he pitted. 1 second off the lead. That is the difference in Johnson being the leader and not being the leader right now. 18 to go, though. Still time to get by him. All the lead lap cars have already made their stops, so this is the race for the win right now between the 48 and the 90. Johnson pushing maybe a little too hard off turn 2 there. Still got to be patient. He's got a better car than the 90. Just got to let it come to him here. There's a lap car holding Sadler up for about the last couple laps as well. Johnson going to have to get by the 42 car of Casey Mears pretty quickly. Pushing way too hard right now. I can tell because I can feel the rear tire sliding out a little bit more. I'm just getting back into the gas way too soon in the middle of the corner, but it's not pushing when I do that. Still got some lap cars coming out of pit road yet. Three lap cars Johnson's going to have to pass. 2 of them Sadler passed, but there's one more that just cycled out of the pits right in front of the 48. Clean air for Elliott Sadler. Johnson trying to make up for that lost cost from his pit crew during that last green flag stop of the day. Costed him the lead. Great corner through 1 and 2, getting by 2 of the lap cars that were in front of him. Still has Clint Boyer in the 2 up ahead. Boyer 2 laps down. And he's still keeping up with Sadler for the most part. Johnson to the outside, just ran his fastest lap, 28.174. He's on the outside of Clint Boyer trying to make the pass on him. This is going to be tough. Desperately trying not to make contact with him, but he's in the wall. He couldn't hold it. Could not hold the outside lane that time. $12 to go. Boyer continues to just block the bottom. He's 2 laps down. He is not getting out of Johnson's way. He's not even teammates with Elliott Sadler either. I don't know why he's not just getting out of the way here. Johnson gets to the inside of the 2 finally. Heading into turns 3 and 4. Johnson going to have him clear. Big dive going into the corner. Closes on Elliott Sadler in a hurry. Can he clear him? No, not quite. Sadler led that lap in the line. Johnson trying to side draft him on the front stretch. There's a lap car in the way on the outside. Sadler going to get picked behind the lapper. Johnson to the lead. 10 to go this time by. And he cleared the lap car easily off turn 2 as well. May have one more lap car to catch the rest of this race, and that would be about it. 10 to go. Weather Expert Gaming, thanks for tuning in. Fastest lap for Johnson again at 28.078. He has ran 4 of his fastest laps of the race in the final 22 laps. It's similar to Charlotte at the end, where we just dug deep. We found something late in the race. Ran our best times trying to catch Tony Stewart there at the end, and this time though it was a bad pit stop that put Johnson behind. Not the strategy itself. Would have given up time with Sadler pitting a lap before him, but he definitely wouldn't have lost the lead. Wasn't for the 2.5 seconds they lost at pit road, because he was only a second behind him. Yeah, I did see Hendrick won the appeal with all 4 teams. $8 to go. Johnson kind of overdrove the corner again. He's got a better car than Elliott Sadler, so he's just got to... I know Sadler's led more laps than him, but Sadler wouldn't even be in the lead if it wasn't for that first caution. Johnson would have dominated the second half and could have ended up leading the most laps, honestly. But instead we're not. Just ran our fastest lap, even with the overdrive in 1 and 2. 28.061. There, Johnson was that good through 3 and 4. Gets to the inside of the 119. They'll be door to door. And Johnson will slide clear. In the middle of the corner. 6 to go. 28.029. 6 times he has ran his fastest laps from 22 to go to 6 to go right now. Sadler's caught behind the 119. Johnson is pulling away. Johnson digging deep 2 races in a row. Had to battle off Tony Stewart, who was the dominant car of the day at Charlotte. Led all but 25 laps in that race. And in this second race, having to battle off Sadler, who we know Johnson's got a better car than him. It was Ryan Newman, who probably has the best car in the field today, will go on to lead the most laps. I think Mike Joy's going to be long retired before I ever get a chance to get in the booth. There's going to be no way. I would be taking his job, too. You'd have to have some color commentary in there from some old drivers and crew chiefs or something. Could be Clint Boyer. Ready to go. 2.5 lead. No pressure for Jimmy Johnson. Tips on live commentary? I mean, you just got to be yourself. I tried to go at it with a professional manner. It's because I do try to take it seriously. A lot of people that are watching, you know, want to know what's going on with the race, my take on it, so that's why I do it the way I do it. That, and I want it to be a profession of mine, you know, growing up too. So Jimmy Johnson is all clear of Danny O'Quinn Jr. getting into turn 1. Didn't think he was going to catch him to the end of the race, but then he started running even faster lap times than what he was. Sadler has fallen way off. No chance to get to Johnson on the final lap. Jimmy Johnson going to win back-to-back. Hendrick Motorsports will win the first 3 of the Busch Series season after Busch winning at Daytona. Johnson winning the next 2 as he'll sweep the doubleheader today, winning at Charlotte and Darlington. 1.6 second margin to victory. First race was probably the better one of the 2, I'd probably say, but Jimmy Johnson's still able to get the win here. And this one wasn't as smooth for himself, but didn't have to be, though, once Ryan Newman had a mistake or something on pit road that they lost a lot of time during that first stop. Probably got trapped a lap down. I'm not sure how, but he would have had to have had a terrible pit stop before that as well. Jimmy Johnson getting the win, sweeping the doubleheader today. Take a look at the finishing results. 39 laps led in race 2 for Johnson. More than I led in the first 2 races of the season combined. Elliott Sadler ends up finishing 3rd. He led 48 laps today, which means Ryan Newman easily would have led the most, which I kind of figured. Tony Stewart led 1 lap, finishes 3rd. Brian Vickers didn't lead a lap, finished 4th. Mark Martin ended up 5th. Ryan Newman 6th. He was the last car in the lead lap. I don't know how he lost track position, but he did. He led 58 laps to start the race today. And pretty much led every lap until he pitted for the first time and then lost the lead. Just something happened to him on pit road, though. I don't know what, but slow stop. Like I said, I don't know if it was a speeding penalty or what happened there. His teammate Kurt Busch finishes in, our teammate Kyle Busch finished at 7th, so 3 top 10s to start the year for him after starting 34th, which is pretty impressive considering there was only 1 yellow. He was first car lap down. Matt Kenseth finishes 8th, Smith 9th, and then Jeremy Mayfield rounds out the top 10. See you all DNF'd in race 2. Another guy with the last name Johnson ended up blowing an engine lap 56. Eskew at lap 106. Aaron Crocker blew an engine lap 127 late in the race. Lap 144, Powell. Never mind. I was thinking we have more laps than that. So 3 DNFs. Tough break for Crocker. She was in the top 5. So I guess we would have had 7 cars on the lead lap then, technically, at the end. But yeah, Jimmy Johnson gets the win. I didn't have the fastest car in either race. Led 39 laps in race 2, 17 in race 1, but we got the job done. Strategy kind of helped a little bit in race 1, but really it kind of went out the window with the mid-race caution, and then the same thing here. So there wasn't really much strategy to go about it. Next race will be the Aaron's 312 at Talladega for the Busch Series season. That'll be interesting. Our first trip there on NASCAR 07 in any series. So Sadler has an 8-point lead after 3 races. I just realized that there was music playing. Gosh darn it. I really got to get on muting that in the menu. Sadler, 500 even points on the season through 3 races. Again, he leads in points. Tony Stewart 2nd. Kyle Busch drops back to 3rd, despite 3 top 10s to start the year. I would imagine. Well, I know Sadler had a top 5 at Daytona. He finished 3rd and finished 2nd tonight. I don't know where he finished at Charlotte earlier. But if he had a top 10 there, I would imagine he had a top 10, considering Busch has 2 top 5s and a top 10 and is in third. Although Busch didn't get any bonus points in either race today, so that could actually be the difference maker. That'd be 10 points that Sadler got that he didn't. Well, Sadler only led 5 today, or led for 5 bonus points today because he didn't lead in the first race either. So that is a little weird. I'm not sure exactly what happened. Jimmie Johnson up to 7th in points, though, after 3 races. Tied for 6th. Technically, we have the tiebreaker because we have 2 wins to Newman's none, so we're 6th in points. After finishing pretty rough at Daytona, that's a lot better, honestly. All things considered. Thanks for everybody tuning in today. Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe for more daily NASCAR content again if you haven't already. I'll see you guys tomorrow on the channel. We'll have a Throwback Thursday live stream where we will watch an old Richmond race. And I'm going to see what race we will watch. It's in the poll. 184 votes. I believe that might be the most voted poll that we have had on the Throwback Thursday channel. So I appreciate everybody that keeps tuning in for that every Thursday. 46%. Excuse me, I started to lose my voice there in the middle of a sentence. 2008 spring race, 46% of the votes. We will watch that classic Richmond race. So again, 2008 spring card tomorrow. I think that's only the second race from 2008 we'll watch. We watched the 08 500 during the off season. So second 2008 race we'll watch on the channel. And definitely an interesting race to say the least, how that one ended up coming to an end. So you won't want to miss it. As far as the other votes, 2014 spring had 22% of the votes, was second most. 2008 fall had last of the votes with 8%. 1988 spring, which would have been the last race on the half-mile Richmond circuit, had 11% of the votes. And the 1988 fall, which would have been the first race on the third quarter-mile circuit, as it is today, had 13% of the votes. So that is it. Appreciate everybody tuning in. I will see you guys tomorrow. And have a good one, everybody. 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Start Time. Can't wait to see you there.